All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the joint meeting of the City of Salem Budget Committee and the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency Committee for February 19th, 2014. Could we call roll, please?
Member Peterson?
Here.
Member Bennett? Absent. Member Tesler? Absent. Member Danke?
Here.
Member Clausen?
Here.
Member Dickey? Absent. Member Thomas? Absent. Member Benars?
Here.
Member Clem? Absent. Member Berger?
Here.
Member Calulite?
Here.
Member Bailey?
Here.
Member Moore Green?
Here.
Member Wildfang?
Here.
Member Gonzalez? Absent. Member Benjamin?
Here.
Member Clark?
Here.
Member Pruitt? Absent.
Thank you. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got my badge on. Jeez, somebody tell me.
Like official. All right, our first order of business tonight is to elect our officers for this coming year's budget committee. Are there any motions for that? Member Danke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the position of chairperson, I would nominate Member Callaway.
Have a second? Okay, seconded by Member Berger. Any discussion or any other motions? Okay, I guess we'll call for the vote for chairperson for Member Calaway. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. All right, motion passes. So Member Calaway will be the chairperson for 2014. And would you like to take over now, or would you prefer to wait till next meeting?
I'd prefer to wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
April 9th,
As long
I
as the
believe.
budget committee doesn't have a problem with that, I have no problem with that. So I can finish tonight out.
Yeah.
Okay, and could the record show that Member Thomas is here with us now? All right, for vice chair, any motions? Member Danke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the position of vice chairman, I would move Member Bednars.
Second.
Seconded by Member Thomas. Any discussion or other motions? Yeah, Member Berger.
Just for some of the new members, traditionally we've switched off between a counselor and one of the ad hoc members of the committee being chair. Last year we had a counselor. This year we just elected one of the at-large community members. So it makes sense to me that the vice chair would be a member of the counselor.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Good comments. Thank you, Member Berger. And actually, I think it's real important, and I'm glad we've got Member Calaway being chair this year, because this is, my term was the third term of a counselor, so I think it's important we get back to that rotation. I think that's a healthy way to do it. So, any other comments about vice chair? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of Member Benars as vice chair of the committee for 2014 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, say nay. Motion passes. And I'd entertain a motion for nominations for secretary.
I didn't even know we had a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the position of secretary, I would move Member Berger.
Second?
I'll second that.
All right.
All right.
Any discussion or other motions? Okay, all those in favor of the motion for Member Berger as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Our next order of business tonight is meeting minutes for approval of meeting minutes for January 22nd, for which I was absent as I was sick. I'd entertain a motion on that.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve minutes as they stand. I'm going to abstain from the vote since I wasn't here and actually haven't had a chance to catch up on that meeting. But all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion passes. Okay, handout material. So we have staff who will take it away.
Thank you, Chair Clausen, Member Peterson, and members of the Budget Committee. I'm Kelly Jacobs, the Budget Officer for the city. In your packets this evening, you have 3 handout items. The first is the second quarter financial summary for the city of Salem. This is an information-only report. And what I have projected on the screen for you is the budget website where these reports can be found under the quarterly financial reports section right at the bottom of this screenshot. And the reports are really quite pleasant to view from the website because they're in color. They're much easier for you to follow because they're in color. And again, I'm microphone challenged.
I can hear you.
The second item, the second handout item is the second quarter financial summary for the Urban Renewal Agency. And again, this item is available on the website in color. I have just one more comment I'd like to make about these reports. I'm not going to review them with you this evening. I'd like for you to have the opportunity to review them on your own. But they are very much a departure from what we have done in past years. Our reports used to be very heavy with technical text and number tables, and what's happened in the last several years is we have very much improved our internal structure for monitoring our budgets. We have departments are responsible for doing monthly monitoring reports for all the budgets that they're responsible for. We also have monthly meetings where we review these monitoring reports with the budget office and the city manager and the deputy city manager. So there's a lot of strength in our internal structure right now, and I think that has allowed us to take a different course with our financial summaries and make them a little more enjoyable and a little more digestible for folks, because it used to be about 16 pages of really heavy language. So that's the change that you're seeing and will continue to see, I hope. And I welcome any feedback you have about improving this communication as well. The last item on your handout item is a schedule for the meetings that will begin on April 9th. These are the budget review meetings. This is a tentative schedule. I wanted you to see what would happen when, how we have this tentatively scheduled. And the one thing I did want to inform you of, and I would be happy to receive your feedback about this as well. What we're planning to do is hold meetings on the Tuesday prior to the Wednesday evening meeting. So on Tuesday evening, the department that would be reviewed on the Wednesday meeting would be available for budget committee members to meet with and to talk more thoroughly about that budget prior to the meeting on the next night. And that would give staff the opportunity to hear your questions and, if necessary, prepare answers for the next evening. So we're thinking of doing that this year if that would be welcomed by the committee. So I would appreciate your feedback about that, and we'll get those scheduled. So that's my review.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. And for clarity, the Tuesday meetings would be a lunch meeting or a evening?
They would be an evening meeting.
Evening meeting?
They would be
Okay.
an evening meeting.
Starting at 6.
Yes.
Any comments, Member Bailey?
Yes, I sent Kelly an email earlier this week about these summary reports. I thought they were really good. I've looked at a lot of budget summary things and reports over the years in my job as well as being here, and it's not easy to boil this stuff down and have it sort of instantly digestible. And somebody's taken some good graphics lessons to heart, and I just thought it was really good. So I commend staff for thinking about how to do it differently, and I think they succeeded. And I was very impressed.
Great, thank you, Member Bailey. I would totally agree with that. I thought this was very easy to read and easy on the eyes. Doesn't put you to sleep while you're trying to get through it. And definitely, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, check out the compression map.
That was
on page 2.
Very instructive.
Of the Salem report. That is very telling. Any other comments, specifically maybe to the Tuesday meetings? Would that be, I hate to have staff come if there's not going to be anybody in attendance. Would it be helpful maybe to the committee if staff sent out an email and staffed accordingly based on response, or looking for feedback here? I see some heads nodding.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, could we do that, Ms. Jacobs? Maybe
bet.
send out an email and.
Absolutely.
And if any members feel like you want to attend, please reply to Ms. Jacobs so that she can plan accordingly with staff. Member Calavette?
I just wanted to say, I've been to several of those over the years. I found them very helpful. You get into details more than we can do here. I just have a hard time committing at this point without my calendar in front of me, and so
Understood.
I'm tentatively very much in favor.
Okay. I will further this communication with the committee.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on the handout material? Okay. Moving on, then we will move straight into item number 6 on our agenda, overview of the police department. And I believe Police Chief Moore is here to present that.
Thank you, Chair Clausen and Mayor and members of the Budget Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. We have some slides that we will run through. I'll try and be brief. If you've been with us for a while, there is not a lot of changes in these economic times, so we'll get you through this. I will like to point out our new mission statement. This was on the left there. It was created by members of our organization, and I think it says a lot about what we're about, so I won't keep you on that, and you'll see a little bit more of it later on, but I think that's really important. Department organization, no major changes as I indicated. I believe we're staffed the same levels as we were last year. We get the job done with the people that we have. We'd certainly like, of course, to have more. If you ask any police chief in the state of Oregon if they need more people, they'll tell you yes, and I won't be the exception to that. However, I think we're well organized. I do consider us a full-service organization, and that I mean that almost anything that's thrown at us, we're fortunate that council and the city has taken care of us over the years, and we're pretty much able to deal with almost anything that happens. When I talk about a full-service organization, I talk about a variety of special teams and units, and I will tell you, in order for us to do that, it does require our personnel to have multiple duties. For instance, one officer can be a patrol officer, but he can also be on the SWAT team, and he can be a firearms instructor, and he can do other tasks. So it does spread us thin at certain times simply because of the variety of things that we want to accomplish for this city, but we are able to do it with the staffing that we have. Just a little bit of history. We are authorized 187 sworn police officers. That is 7 less than about 3 years ago. We lost a couple officers, I think it was 11, 12, when the school district reduced their budget. We lost a couple of officers in the schools. And later on, when we had budget cuts within the city, we lost officers who were assigned to our downtown team and our DART team, which is our drug activity response team. Excuse me. And we basically melded that unit into our street crimes unit. Civilian-wise, we also had lost some positions. We actually have more civilian positions today than we did years ago. That was because of our consolidation with the Lincoln County agencies in our communications center. So we're staffed where we are, and we are able to get the job done. This is our general budget, general fund, WVCC, radios and priors. I'm sure you'll have a lot more information in your budget books about what all that entails. I will tell you we do work hard to get grants for our organization to help us with equipment or staffing. We're in I think maybe the final year of a COPS grant, which hired 4 police officers through the federal government. They paid for a good portion of those. We also have a grant that pays for our CSO program, which is our community service officer, which is our civilians who investigate burglaries, go to traffic accidents, and take care of issues that don't require the response of a sworn police officer. We had a variety of grants that enabled us to get some great technology, and that has been of assistance to us. And we mentioned, we haven't mentioned yet, but our foundation has also been great to us in providing us safety equipment for our officers, and they actually got a grant that helped us purchase a service dog. So, and that's not a service dog like you'd think. That's a police dog. So it works out very well. So we try and utilize grants wherever we can. I'll just walk through our organization very quickly. The patrol division is, of course, our Our patrol officers out in the cars, they respond, they're the first responders to emergency situations. We also have our downtown team. That is one sergeant and 4 officers now. It was reduced when we had budget cuts, but they have a great impact on what happens in our downtown area. Traffic control is our motorcycle officers. We also have a domestic violence advocate team who does a great job in responding to almost all domestic violence situations and provides immediate relief and information to victims of domestic violence, and we really believe that helps us cut down on repeat cases of domestic violence, and it certainly improves the ability for not only helping the victim, but making sure we have a successful prosecution. And then the last group in the patrol division is our emergency operations, and that's our SWAT team, our negotiators, our bomb team, our mobile response team, which for lack of a better term is a riot team. And they respond accordingly when they're needed by, when our patrol folks are overwhelmed and need some help. Those are the people we call. The investigations division, criminal investigations is our detectives that take care of all felony investigations and follow-ups. Our drug and gang enforcement, we have a variety of officers that work drugs in the city. We have a DEA task force. We have our street crimes unit. And then our gang enforcement officer, which is just 3 officers, but they do a great job in trying to stem the issues involving gang issues and membership in gangs and doing some reaching out to families who have issues with their children being impacted by gangs. Our school resource officers are, of course, the officers that we have assigned to schools. We have an officer assigned to every high school in Salem and an officer assigned to every 2 middle schools. We have 1 officer for every 2 middle schools. That was part of the budget cuts that we had in years past. And of course, those officers deal with the feeder schools, the elementary schools, when the need arises. We have an incredible crime prevention unit, a great graffiti abatement team, and cadets and volunteers that certainly help us in all aspects of our operations. I will tell you some of the great projects that we have going in the investigations division. One of them is a DNA project where instead of in addition to looking for fingerprints at crime scenes, we are also swabbing for DNA, and the return that we are receiving is incredible. I think the last numbers was we had 150-some cases submitted, and we had hits on 45 of them, which is much more than we have with fingerprints. And we were one of only 3 agencies in the state to be involved in a pilot project on that. I think that will probably expand due to the success of it, but we're really excited about being part of that. We're branching out in social media. We have a Facebook page. We tweet, whatever the heck that is, and we do some other things that, but I think it's really incredible and it gets a lot of attention, very popular with our community, and that they can follow us. We will actually, on some nights, send out tweets from a ride along in a patrol with a patrol officer or sitting next to our communications unit dispatchers, and I think it really gives people in this community that are interested in that a real great view of what's going on. The support division is recruiting, hiring, training, fleet, evidence management, records, internal affairs, our budget, and our crime analysis. And I will tell you, it's a very small division, but it carries a huge load within our organization, and they take care of everything behind the scenes so that our patrol officers and our detectives can do what they really need to do, and they do a great job for us. Our communications division, that's our 911 answering point. It's dispatch for, we dispatch for 29 police, fire, and ambulance agencies over 3 counties. I believe last year we talked about our consolidation with Lincoln County. That has been completed, where we have physically moved the Lincoln County Dispatch Center into our organization at WVCC. And I can tell you the feedback from the chiefs and the sheriff and the fire chiefs has been great. They love the service we provide. It's very professional, and it does a great job for not only them, but for us. During the last year, we upgraded our CAD system. We had some trials and tribulations involved in that, but the vendor was great working with us, and we have a mobile dispatch system within our patrol vehicles that works very well, and we'll continue to upgrade our CAD system for our dispatchers and get that taken care of. Radio communications is they take care of radio for our police, fire, public works, transit, who we have a contract with, and Kaiser PD, who we assist with. We are currently going out for an RFP to upgrade our radio communications. I don't know if I talked to you last year, but the federal government required us to narrow band, which has had some impact on our ability to communicate. And our communications division continues to work on that and make improvements along with our vendor. And I would say within the next month or so, we will be going out with an RFP to upgrade our what I'll call an antiquated radio system with a modern 800 megahertz system that will allow for the first time police, fire, and public works to actually talk to each other. Police are on a different system than public works and fire, so that will be very important to us. Some of the initiatives or things that we're working on, you've probably heard we're interested in building a new police facility. We are gathering public input on that, and we will move forward with information back to the mayor and city council to determine where we want to go with that, and we will see where we want to go. The radio system replacement I already spoke about. Our records management system replacement, we learned that our records management system has an end of life of about 1.5 years out. I will tell you that's an expensive system to replace, so we will be looking at opportunities to do that, whether it's to purchase our own system or to look at consolidating with some of our neighbors who already have a record system that they are pleased with. I will tell you, we will make sure that whatever system we go with is compatible with our needs, and that we won't just consolidate with somebody because it's cheap, because when we do that, we find that that doesn't always work. So we will be diligent in how we go about replacing our records management system to make sure it works for us. And when we talk about consolidation opportunities, we've talked about the 911 consolidation. We will always look if there are things that we can do as far as records management systems or radio systems or whatever it might be to see where we can get the biggest bang for our buck by partnering with some of our neighbors to see what we can do. These are some of the challenges, of course, that we have. None of these are new to anyone, I think. We have some homeless issues. The Mayor's Safe Street and Parks project is a big part of that, and we hope to move forward with that to deal with some of the issues that the homeless problems that we have in the city. Vulnerable community would be our elders, our children, our developmentally disabled, our non-English speaking community where sometimes they are preyed upon by others, and we certainly want to look out for them. Mental health services, we certainly have some issues with mental health issues in the city of Salem, and we believe those are only going to grow. We have returning veterans that are having issues, and we are sympathetic to that and want to help them in any way we can. We're currently involved in a team of officers that teams with the mental health department, and we actually go out and we have an officer assigned to that 20 hours a week, and they actually go out and make contact with some of our our best repeat customers in the mental health areas, so that we can see if we can provide them some service, so we can eliminate police calls for service that they may be involved in. We try and help them wherever we can. We're also going to be involved through a project involving the state and the Marion County Sheriff's Office and Marion County Mental Health, where we are actually going to have a crisis intervention team placed within the city and the county, where we have a deputy and a police officer assigned with mental health workers, and they will actually be first responders on some of our mental health calls to try and deal with the issues that are involved with the mental health community and some of those things. So that will be important. Legislative issues, I will tell you, I just spent 3 hours over at the legislative hearings to testify for 2 minutes on an issue, and there's a lot of things going on at the legislature that impact us, and us along with the city. We try and stay on top of those legislative issues that would have a negative impact on us. Many times at the legislature, quite frankly, bills that we can stop is just as effective as any bill that we can introduce. So I think that's very important that we're involved over there. I've listed property crime and stolen autos for the last several years. Those have been very high. 2 years ago, in 2012, we had our property crime soared, and I can tell you in the last year we made some real impacts in both property crime and stolen autos, but that will continue to be our focus, as that's still most of the crime that we investigate is property crimes. And I think we need the community's help, of course, in that area, and I think we do a great job with persons crimes. I think we solve most of the major incidents that occur in Salem, and we want to do the same things with property crime. I'll just end with that's our new mission, vision, value statement, and I'll leave that up there. While you, if you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
All right, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Chief Moore, for a really excellent report, and to you and to the entire department for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Day in and day out, night in and night out. You do so much to keep us safe. I really do appreciate that. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned the property crimes and stolen autos. Could you estimate any percentage of relationship between drug abuse, drug addiction, and the property crimes that you're seeing?
Well, I'll just tell you it would be an estimate, but my good friend Walt Biglaw, the district attorney, and I have talked many times. And I tell you, in the old days, we said that about 80% of the crime that we investigate is probably drug or alcohol related. And we've kidded that if you got rid of drugs and alcohol, you could probably lay off half the police force. But I don't see that coming in the near future. So it certainly has a big impact on everything that we do, whether it's our dispatch center or our police officers responding to calls, or, for instance, our downtown team dealing with issues in the downtown area with homeless and folks afflicted with mental health issues.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. So I remember a few years ago where there was a concerted effort toward drug trafficking, and particularly mid-level drug trafficking. Is the city and is the county still working and sort of triaging those trafficking issues?
Well, as you know, we have a DEA task force that looks at middle and upper level drug abusers, if you will, or drug sellers. Our street crimes unit has had to take up the slack in a variety of areas. As I mentioned, we lost some folks in our DART team, which was the team that went out and did knock and talks and dealt with issues in the neighborhoods. Street crimes has had to pick that up. But when mid-level dealers become part of their investigation, our street crimes unit certainly looks into those, and quite frankly, we try and go as high in an organization as we can, and that's how you impact it. That's not always easy. It's always time-consuming, but I think our street crimes team does a good job with trying to impact those mid-level folks.
Okay, thank you.
Member Danke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chief. Two questions, if I may. First being the domestic violence advocates. They're called out on those, but I'm assuming that's a secondary or parallel call out. Whoever is closest gets there first, and then they're...
Well, I'll explain that. That's a great question. We have officers that are specially trained in domestic violence, and they'll respond. The domestic violence advocate is, we have one and a half full-time folks, and the rest of the domestic violence team advocates are volunteers, and they take turns on a night to carry a cell phone with them, and we call them out. So the police officers will always respond first, and when a situation is stabilized, we'll call out an advocate to try and help the victim. Once, if we make an arrest, the suspect has been taken away, and it's safe for the advocate to respond, and they provide them support and information. You know, I will tell you, years ago when I was a street cop, we would go, we'd arrest somebody, we'd say, hope everything's okay, and we'd drive away. And there was very little support for victims of domestic violence, and we have come a long way, and I think, quite frankly, the program we have in place is a model for a lot of agencies.
Excellent, thank you. And then secondary, gang enforcement. How are we doing gang-wise, trend-wise, severity? Can you tell us anything?
Well, we have gangs. We have a variety of gangs. We try and keep a lid on gang violence, but it does erupt. It erupts both in the city and the county. There are no fences anywhere, so people go wherever they are. Our gang team tries to be enforcement related, but they also try and be relationship related, where they try and steer folks away from that. They try and impact the negativity that can creep into being involved in a gang, and they also try and help parents who have children who are becoming involved in gangs. I'm trying to think if there's other issues. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Are we
Number-wise, 400 maybe documented gang members, but that's to be documented. You got to do some serious things, or you got to do some things that get you documented. I would guess there's lots of fringe, and some of those documented. Our gang issues. When I say, 10, 11 years ago, we had 5 gang homicides, and we put those folks away, and some of them are getting out, and some of the periphery folks are out. So there's always danger there, and quite frankly, with our gangs, we may not have the same issues and the same levels that a Los Angeles or Portland or someone you might have, but really all it takes is one person that is willing to do something stupid, and then we have some serious issues. And so we try and keep an eye, or we try and control the people that we think are going to be stupid, and do something that is really going to impact the community negatively.
Thanks.
All right, Member Bailey?
Yeah, this is a conversation that will probably extend far beyond tonight. In fact, I know it will. And that's the subject of the police facility, a new facility. I can imagine all kinds of reasons for that, at least that I've picked up in terms of current, adequacy of space and the utilities and conditions, seismic safety, and all that stuff. This is a big ticket item, and I know it's going to be a lot of back and forth with the council and how to solve this, because and when I was on the city council in Oregon City, we went through the same thing, trying to figure out how are we going to optimize our police force and their working conditions, because they were not optimal. And you get a cascading series of morale issues and functionality issues and all that. So where are we in the planning for that, and how do you see that rolling out here in our budgeting process for this year? Because this is likely a multi-year issue, or could be.
Can I put a sidebar on that, Member Bailey?
Yeah.
And tell me if you'd like a little bit more, but could we keep that in relationship to how much are we using out of the budget?
Yeah.
Out of the city's budget
yes.
towards that? Because I
Yes.
definitely don't want to go down that rabbit hole too far.
We don't need a huge, but I think we just need to lift the lid on this a little bit tonight.
Sure.
So that
how much are we
can-
spending, say,
Yeah.
out of city's budget
Yeah.
on moving that forward?
Yeah.
I would say, we were talking about that earlier today. I would say in the last year, perhaps we've spent a little less than $100,000 to do some polling, to do some architectural design, and efforts for informing the community of where we want to go. So I would say that's the cap on what we've spent so far, and that's probably general fund money, I would guess.
Do you have a kind of a timeline in mind that people have been talking about
Well,
here?
we have the concept that the city has been presenting. We've gone to about 40, probably 40 meetings or so. We have a variety of ideas and input from different community members. They certainly are not all in agreement with the concept that the city has, and quite frankly, the ticket price on what the city's looking at is scary to some folks. So I would guess within the next month, we will be going back to City Council, asking for direction on where they would like to go. And depending on where we go, it would involve a bond measure, so that that would be the only way we could move forward.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you. Member Berger and then Member Benars.
I don't know the exact timing of this, the bridge to Minto Brown. I'm wondering what planning you guys have done to try and patrol an area that is pretty wild and not a typical urban environment, but is very close to a population center where it will attract homeless and a lot of people,
Right.
in the good way as well.
Yeah, I will tell you, we haven't done a lot of planning other than we've talked with the city manager, and we've indicated, and she and I have both discussed the fact that once that bridge opens, we will probably have to expand our downtown team. That would be our goal, to do that. I will tell you, there was a lot of concern when the footbridge between here and Wallace opened up, and quite frankly, many of the concerns that were expressed never came to pass. We found that to be a very positive addition. It's used by good people all the time, and even the scary transients or homeless people that people were worried about very, very seldom create issues. And the reason I tell you that is I would expect much of the same with the bridge into Minnow Island. I think it is going to be so attractive for people on bikes and joggers and people that just want to go across that bridge. And I've seen it in other cities. When you create something nice like that, good people come and good people use it. And sometimes the people that want to create problems don't want to be around good people. So they go somewhere else. And I think that will be the history there. But I do think we will probably have to, step up enforcement to make sure that those areas are safe. But we don't have any plans to add anything this year. I think once that bridge, we'll cross that bridge when we.
Hopefully it's not a bridge over trouble.
All right. Yeah.
And Member Berger, I would just state that those discussions will probably be more prevalent during next year's budget discussion as we get closer to the completion of the bridge.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Benars.
So tagging onto that whole thing, first off, last year we decided amongst ourselves that we were going to put together a wish list that, and we discussed this rather late in the budgeting process, if I remember. I just wanted to bring it up now, which spawns the next question. Was one of the things that we included in the wish list last year was to have 2 additional police officers. There was some presumption that those officers would have been applied to the downtown core area. Did those officers get hired? Did we actually add the 2 officers?
No, we didn't add any officers last year.
Okay, so when we open up the bridge to Minto, if we need to expand our downtown core, it's one of those things where, does it go on the wish list? I don't know where we are in this whole thing, but to make sure that at least we're prepared for this. And again, it may be something we put off till next year.
I won't speak for the city manager, but I would guess that would be part of the discussions in next year's budget, and it'll all have to do with the timing of when that bridge is completed.
Okay, so then I'll just sit with the issue of, at some point, we want to make sure that we have a wish list, or at least the opportunity that there would be a wish list as we go through this process the next few months.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thought. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Chief Moore? I'll take one quick question. Chief, you mentioned the narrow banding. Are we narrow banded now?
We are narrow banded,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And I would just tell you, the issues we're having is we have difficulty on our portable radios sometimes, and when we're in buildings, it's really bad.
Oh.
And so we are working with the vendor that helps us with our radios to try and impact that. Mark Buckholz and his team in the radio shop they're doing a great job trying to improve the situation, but I will tell you it's something we're going to have to look at. We want our people to be able to talk to each other, and it's pretty critical.
Yeah, especially when you're in a building, that's when you
Yep.
need it most, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'll be curious to see what happens with that. I want to make sure our communication is good for
Right.
all of our emergency responses, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next piece is item 7 on our agenda, overview of the municipal court, and I believe Ms. Bond is presenting us this piece.
Shouldn't have done that.
There it is. Good evening, Chair Clausen and members of the committee. Deborah Bond from the Administrative Services department tonight. It's kind of unusual to speak to you so early in the evening. So I know I'll have your undivided attention. Tonight I'm just speaking about the municipal court, but before I begin, I would like to recognize Judge Aiken, who is here also as our presiding judge for the court. The Municipal Court Services Program plays a very important role in public safety and the quality of life by providing the venue for adjudicating the offenses resulting from the violations of traffic laws and city ordinances. I keep hitting the wrong button here. I think. There we go. Our org chart is divided between internal service charges and direct service charges, and the court is a member of the Administrative Services Department, but it is the only program within our department whose sole purpose is to serve the public, and that's why I'm speaking to you separately tonight on just the court. Here's some of the stats that I prepared for you here. We have a budget of $1.6 million for the current year, and we have a full-time equivalent of 14 staff members, which includes the presiding judge. In some of our performance statistics here for you, in 2012, you can see we were at cases disposed to filed at about 102, and that's because we were still coming out of a very large case backlog that had been on the books for a number of years. And now the 2013 percentage is probably more reflective of current cases as they are filed and disposed through the court system. In January 2013 is when the court started adjudicating all traffic violations, parking violations. Prior to that time, we only would have been serving the parking violations if indeed they needed to see a judge, but now we handle all those violations. And here are the next two slides really deal with the types of services that are performed in the court. The first is our case flow management. And this staff administers the cases to achieve the timely disposition of them as required by our state laws or our local ordinances, and to sustain an accurate record of their proceedings. And this involves basically the intake process where cases are screened and are filed with the court, to a course of action such as scheduling the hearings, getting a jury if it's necessary, and then ultimately supporting the trial judge. That's followed by an adjudication and disposition process. The cases are heard by the judge, it is sentenced, and then they are filed with the court orders. And then finally, the step is the compliance, and this is where you have been ordered to either pay a fine or possibly do community service work, and there may be probation involved. The support services for the court are the employees who basically are in court while it's in session, providing a judicial assistance, jury management, jury summonsing, scheduling the hearings, scheduling the in-custody transports from the county jail, and case file management, recording the trial results, and making the payment arrangements that have been court-ordered, or scheduling the community service work for the defendants who may have a financial hardship and cannot pay their fine that day. Staff monitors the compliance in the court orders for traffic diversion programs, court-ordered payments, any probation conditions. Also, they do the scheduling and notification for failure to appear hearings, and they execute bench warrants. Records management is to ensure the timely and accurate capturing and updating of case files. In addition to our physical files, the case files now are scanned into our document imaging system, and so they are electronically available, making it easier to access them for court proceedings, other authorized staff who may need to see a court file, and it also allows for quick access to responding to public records requests or investigations. The court also, once a court is disposed, must report these convictions to other law enforcement agencies, such as the Department of Motor Vehicles or the state police, to name a few. And then finally, the collection of the fine is a very big part of our service. Staff monitors the defendant payment arrangements that have been made to make sure they're completed timely. They use a variety of collection techniques when it's appropriate. Past due types of traffic fines are reported to the Department of Motor Vehicles for a license suspension, and they also reported to the Oregon Department of Revenue for their tax offset program to maximize collections during basically this period we're in right now through April. And the municipal court also refers past due fines to the city's collection agency. We proposed 3 initiatives as we put together our presentation. One is the integration of our case flow management system, which was upgraded in 2012. And this is providing staff with a much more feature-rich and robust software system for recording the actions taken in the court cases. Staff is continuing to learn a lot about these features for its capabilities within the system and how best to utilize that to improve our service delivery. The second is improving court security. It is really no surprise to anyone in this room that the people who come to court are not coming because they're volunteering. The complexity of the judicial system is not always easy to understand for the layperson, including myself. I've learned a lot in the last 2 years with them. And it's very time-consuming to work through these processes, and so it increases anxiety and frustration to the people who visit the court. Addressing court security to manage these sometimes volatile situations is an important goal and requires vigilance. And the municipal court currently has panic buttons which trigger alarms to the 911 call center in case an emergency happens in the court. And the silent alarm initiates a very quick response from our police department to the court. But we wish to provide additional levels of protection for the court offices as well as the courtroom in the next year. So we will be working on improving building security as best we can and providing staff training on de-escalating potentially violent situations that could occur in the court. The court staff and the judge have identified a number of projects to assist in improving in the public's experience should they need to come to court. For some people, it may be their first and their only time to come to court. And for some people, their first and only time to appear in court. So the more we can do to make this a less confusing and a time-consuming engagement, the better the court's relationship is going to be with the community. So in 2013, the court began, as I said, adjudicating all parking citation, which increased the workload that was hitting the court offices at that point in time. You saw the numbers of the the parking violations on the statistics. So as an efficiency improvement, Judge Aiken issued a delegation order that granted the court's Violation Bureau staff the ability to review and adjudicate parking and traffic violation cases under certain conditions, such as there were no prior convictions or they didn't have any past due fines with the court. This implementation, the implementation of this order circumvented the need to actually have to sit through and wait to see the judge in the court. And so cases are now being disposed a lot faster for these very simple violations. And this has noticeably reduced the number of cases needing to go before the judge, and it has expedited the resolving of these cases that do not require the judge because there needs to be a decision on a plea. Also, as of this month, on the court webpage, there's a frequently asked question page that answers the most asked questions by the public as to how our processes for paying parking tickets happens and when they need to appear before a judge to resolve the ticket. Additionally, we're also faxing the driver's license reinstatement letters to the DMV each night. Prior to this time, we have been using the U.S. mail, which you know can take a few days before it finally gets there and processed. We now are faxing about 5 to 30 letters a day. So the turnaround time for someone to get their license back is pretty quick, and it has been a real positive response from those who are in need. And it has reduced the number of phone calls that we're also seeing at the office because of people asking what's the status of getting my license reinstated. Since January, we have also been reviewing and revising our required letters that are sent out to potential visitors to the court, such as a jury summons or a failure to appear letter We want to make an effort to make them more reader-friendly, less complicated, and simpler to understand as to what we're asking the recipient of that letter to do. Judge Aiken and the staff also recognize the difficulty in handling many of the quality of life cases through the judicial process when the defendant is indigent or has mental health issues. The failure to repair rate on the quality of life cases is staggering. And Chief Moore actually alluded to that, so if he's seeing it, you know where it's winding up in a court process. This is creating a revolving door cycle of crime and workload for the court as the failures to repair rates are so high. Access to justice and providing alternative sanctions for these offenders is a long-term initiative for the municipal court. The concept of a community court is, as an initiative for the court, we will continue to explore with law enforcement, criminal justice agencies, and social services providers a way or a means to help address this growing issue for all of us. Our challenges at this point: since January 2013, the court has operated without a court administrator, which is a key position to the successful administration of the city's court. And I want to say that I have to recognize here tonight Dawn Thompson, who has served as our interim court administrator for most of the last year. And believe me, without her, I couldn't have been able to do this job in addition to my other duties. There have been 2 failed recruitments this past year, and we are now in the process of the 3rd, about ready to wrap up on it over the next month. And I, for one, hope it will be successful. As with any change in management teams, once a new administrator is brought on board, there's a period of adjustment for the staff and the judges and the new administrator begin to work together. Caseloads are somewhat sporadic and can be difficult to predict in order to determine staffing needs. There may be fewer misdemeanor filings currently, but they are much more time-consuming than a regular violations type of filing. And as the composition of total filings shift or the number of cases increase or decrease, the court needs to ensure that it identifies the changes in a timely manner and is responsive to those changes to be effectively managing the case flow. So improvements in reporting capabilities that are coming out of the new case management system are being explored to help identify opportunities to do this. And finally, like the police, the court office has very limited space. Currently, as I said, we have 14 positions, one of which is the judge. But of the 13 staff positions, there is only physical space in the court offices for 10 of those staff, and that space is very limited. And the remaining 3 are located, 2 of them are on the 3rd floor, located in the purchasing office area, and 1 is located in the finance office area. So this does impact our intra-departmental communications, our case flow, file work, and our public interaction when it's necessary. But despite these challenges, the city's municipal court continues to provide responsive and quality service to the community we serve. And I thank you for your time and answer any questions if I can.
All right, questions from Ms. Bond, Member Nanki, then Member Calavite.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Deborah. Question on one of the first slides up there, which was a collection success. And that's fines collected across the board. It's not ones that are sent to collections on the...
Across the board, yes.
And do we have a good feel for the 50% who don't pay? Are they more likely to be traffic violations, and so we got a bunch of people driving around town with suspended licenses, or what?
I can't answer that directly. I could anecdotally, Councilor Nanki. I know from what I have seen through this, we have a number of cases, for example, on the parking violations that are just now being sent to the collection agency. I know our collection agency efforts are much improved with our new agency, so I'm seeing a lot more of that going on. So I think it's a variety across the board. I don't know if Don, if you had any additional information?
Most of the cases you're going to see with collections are going to be the violations. What we turn over to the collection agency would be, we do send some misdemeanor cases to collections, not a huge turnover, with those, but And then parking, of course, is gonna, just continue to do pretty well. I think we're doing pretty well so far on parking.
Follow up if I can, just in the failure to appear, do we then fine them and they don't pay as well because they just never show up? Or,
Yes.
so they're a
Um,
big
Judge,
portion of
would you
that
like it?
50% potentially?
I can't say they're a large portion of the 50%. I can get more information for you on that. We can break it down and bring it back to the committee.
Councilor Nanki, Judge Aiken. When you look at those numbers, those are the fines imposed and received, but you'll have a percentage, 20, 25% who pay in full upfront.
Okay, so they're outside of that
So
number.
they pay their bail forfeiture, pay it in full. So when you aggregate the numbers and get 50%, you've got a big number guilty by default paying nothing. And so that's the hardcore group who gets suspended. We send it to DMV. They go to collections, they go to intercept. And so it may aggregate 50%, but you've got 20% paying in full upfront, a group in the middle on payment plans, and then you've got a hardcore group at the end who it's like pulling teeth trying to get them to pay. And that's in the violations. On the criminal cases, fines are imposed based on ability to pay in some areas. So the traffic fines for DUI, higher, but the rate of collection, pretty good. On the quality of life, very little imposed in fines because they don't have the ability to pay. But there's a mandatory bench probation fee in each case, and the rate of collection on that in the quality of life cases is very low.
Okay,
So it depends on the group of cases and the types of cases.
excellent,
Thank
thanks.
you.
If I could actually, before Member Calavite, if that's all right, along those lines, so the 50% is total dollars assessed to dollars collected, or is it 50% of fines are delinquent? Does
No.
that make sense?
I'll
Yeah,
let you-
that's ordered by the judge and then ultimately collected. So that's what that 50% is.
So if somebody's in the middle of a payment plan, they'll show up on this stat just because it hasn't all been received yet? Okay.
That's part of that. And if you take, let's say you had $100,000 imposed over the course of a year, and you collect 50,000, that looks like 50%. But you'll have some who paid in full and some who paid nothing. And so you gotta be careful how you try and aggregate those numbers.
And you have some people who are in the process of paying
process.
and will get it paid off. So the
Correct.
50% might sound a little worse than it is.
Over time, we should be up in the 70s.
Okay.
In terms of nationally, we should be in the mid to higher 70% collection rate. Courts around the country are having difficulties. The recession, but traditionally we are low. We need to get better. And part of full court enterprise will help us identify the group that's sort of paying full, so you don't have to worry about them. Those who are on payment plans and complying, it may take time. Times are tough. But those who are just resisting paying at all, we're going to have to focus different types of collection efforts to get them to comply.
It'd be interesting to see that number aggregated over the last 5 years maybe, because that might show us a little better where we're at. Total collections maybe? I don't know if that's meaningful or not, but
We can certainly get that. I can just tell you, I think our collection rate is a lot better than it was over the last 5 years because of that backlog.
okay.
And some of it, if you recall, Counselor, we had the amnesty program too,
Okay,
and trying to collect.
thank you. Sorry, Member Calavite, if you're ready.
I had all the same questions. Thank you. Done.
Sorry, didn't mean to steal your thunder. Any other questions for Ms. Bond on the municipal court? All right, thank you. All right. How are we doing on time? We'll go another and take a short break.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll do section 8, the overview of the fire department by Chief Niblock, and then maybe what we'll do is take a brief recess to grab a drink, stretch our legs a little bit, and then come right back. So, Chief Niblock, take it away.
Thank you, and good evening. Budget Chair Clausen, I guess, for the last meeting. Mayor Peterson, councilors, Budget Committee members, and citizens in the home viewing audience. I'm your Fire Chief, Mike Niblock, and this evening it's my pleasure to provide you with a brief overview of the services we provide and the specific funds that we manage. Additionally, I'll highlight some initiatives we are undertaking this year and some challenges that we have that are ongoing. The mission of the Salem Fire Department is to protect lives, property, and the environment, placing safety and service above all. The professional firefighters who serve you are dedicated to ensuring this core mission. The Salem Fire Department is a full-service and well-respected organization that holds shared values of integrity, excellence, community service, teamwork, and safety. We provide services in 4 functional areas: administration, emergency operations, fire and life safety, training, and emergency medical services. All of these divisions are funded through the general fund, with the exception of the Emergency Medical Services Fund, which is supported by the Enterprise Fund 320. As indicated on this chart, the majority of our operations are funded through the general fund. Our operating budget for the fiscal year 13-14 for administration, emergency operations, fire and life safety, and the training division was just over $26 million. The other portion of our budget was the EMS fund, which has an operating budget of $1.6 million. The final operating budget shown on this chart is the remaining bond funds, which I'll speak to later in my presentation. Further breaking down our general fund, you can see that the fire department is a labor-intensive operation, with over 85% of our budget dedicated to personnel services, leaving 13.7% for materials and services. While our materials and services are a small cost, or a small percentage of our budget, they are vital to maintaining the necessary equipment and training to keep our firefighters equipped to serve the public. We had a small amount of capital outlay last fiscal year. However, this year there will be no capital outlay in the 14-15 budget. As you can see, there is little to no discretionary funds within our budget. Emergency operations is our largest division and is charged with ensuring the daily staffing of our 9 fire stations, which are strategically located throughout the city. When you include our service contract with Salem Suburban Rural Fire Protection District, our response area grows to nearly 80 square miles. This division responds to a wide variety of emergency calls, including commercial and residential structure fires, hazardous materials incidents, highly technical rescues, including water rescue, high-angle rope rescue, confined spaces rescue, building collapse, trench rescue, and airport rescue firefighting. They also respond to motor vehicle accidents, including those that include a trapped occupant requiring extrication from the vehicle prior to receiving medical treatment. The majority of the calls handled by this division are medical in nature. It's important to note that our paramedic-staffed engine companies and ladder companies are first on scene 70% of the time, providing advanced medical patient care prior to the arrival of our transport partner, Rural Metro Ambulance. In 2013, the division responded to 17,539 emergency calls, which represents a 4.2% increase from that received in 2012. This includes responding to 427 fires, which represents an increase of 6.6% over the 2012 fires. The other thing that I would add about the Emergency Operations Division is very much like the police, all those special technical teams that I mentioned, those are value-added services. All those folks are firefighters on fire trucks, and they're also cross-trained in those specialty operations. So when somebody calls for one of those types of emergencies, we have the skills and the tools and the abilities to pretty much handle anything that comes our way. Our Fire and Life Safety Division leads our community risk reduction activity through code compliance, investigation, and emergency management. They provide new construction plan review, site inspection, fire protection system acceptance testing. They also conduct fire inspections in high hazard and high life risk occupancies. This division provides determination of fire cause and origin by providing on-call fire investigators for our Emergency Operations Division. They also deliver the Youth Fire Setter Intervention and Prevention Program elements to juveniles involved in fire setting. They oversee the citywide emergency preparedness program and provide planning and training to city staff. They also develop and maintain the Salem Emergency Operations Plan and the Natural Hazards Mitigation Plan. This division maintains the city's compliance with the National Incident Management System, as well as trains citizens in emergency response through our CERT team program. This program continues to be very popular, and to date, we have trained over 1,095 citizens. And we have 3 more classes scheduled between now and June. And there's 4 people in that division. Our training and EMS division provides ongoing proficiency training in multiple areas, including but not limited to fireground tactics, emergency medical skills, technical rescue, and personnel management. The training division oversees the administration of our diversity, recruitment, and entry-level testing committees. This division is also responsible for the management of the Emergency Medical Services section of the Salem Fire Department. Before I conclude my presentation this evening, I want to share a few of our operational initiatives that are currently underway and our challenges moving forward. We too will be replacing our outdated records management system in our prevention division. Our current occupancy software system has been obsolete for several years and has finally come to the end of its life and will not be supported when the next upgrade to Windows 8 takes place. This project will be completed next fiscal year and within our existing proposed budget target for 14-15. Earlier, I spoke about our operating budget for the remaining fire bond funds. To date, we have completed the following projects. Removal of the Station 1 underground diesel fuel tank. We've expended $160,000 on that project to date. We have to finish paving the parking lot at Station 1. We'll do that this spring. And we purchased, with council's approval, we have purchased 27 LifePak defibrillators just last month for a cost of $770,000. The remaining funds will be completing some additional paving projects at Station 6, the training grounds, and completing a few minor remodeling projects that weren't completed prior. All of these projects will be completed, and expenditure of the remaining bond funds will be completed by the end of next year. Our final initiative is the stabilization of Fund 320. Coincidentally, it's also one of our challenges. Currently, the council's policy requires us to maintain 6 months of operating capital in the EMS reserve. In today's dollars, that amount would be between $2.8 million and $3 million. Our beginning fund balance for fiscal year 13-14 is $2.8,016,469. So we're at the bottom end of the 2.8. In December of this year, I made the difficult decision to assist in the stabilization of this fund to eliminate third-party billing operations. We had been doing that for over 25 years. With this move, the anticipated operating deficit for fiscal year 13-14 has been reduced from $400,000 to $200,000. In fiscal year 14-15, the deficit further decreases to $97,000. The department will continue to look for cost savings and anticipates additional savings from internal services in future years due to the elimination of the 4 full-time employees and the associated reduction in materials and service costs. Long term, we need to grow this fund balance above its current level so the proper reserve is available if needed and future capital items can be budgeted for replacement. As an example, I just mentioned that this year the council approved the purchase of those 27 LifePaks at a cost of $770,000 using remaining bond funds. Those funds were available due to the project being completed under budget. However, the LifePaks must be replaced every 8 years, and the EMS fund must be ready to handle these types of capital purchases in the future. Our final challenge is emergency response time. This graph reflects the level to which the department has been able to achieve the council's mandated 5.5-minute response at the 85th percentile time standard for Priority 1 emergencies. We define a Priority 1 emergency as a call where an imminent threat to life or property exists or is likely to exist. We respond to these types of calls code 3, meaning we use our lights and sirens. Our response time statistics are based solely on these Priority 1 calls. In 2013, we responded to approximately 10,000 Priority 1 calls, and the department achieved the council's 5.5-minute arrival standard 71.79% of the time. In comparison to 2012, we achieved the arrival standard 74.32% of the time. As an organization, we are striving to achieve the arrival standard at 73% of the time for the next year. Faced with the challenges of reduced resource levels and increasing call volumes, I believe there are some minor gains that can be realized within our existing resources. Having said that, we are very close to reaching the plateau for response time performance. I want to leave you with this thought. I'm incredibly proud of the men and women of the Salem Fire Department. They have a can-do attitude and a heart for service, and we will continue to strive to provide the highest level of service possible. I know we've covered a lot of information in a very short period of time, and this barely scratches the surface of the complexities within our organization. If you desire to have additional information, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions, and I would also direct you to our city webpage and the fire department homepage. There are 2 excellent documents there that will provide more information, and they are directly below the photo on the front page, the orientation manual and our standards of cover document, which is how we do what we do and why we do it. Thank you. This concludes my presentation, and I'm prepared to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions for Chief Niblock? Councilor Nanki?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chief. Overtime. Several years ago, there was an issue as far as just the amount that was being paid out in that, and we made some great improvements. How are we doing now? And Kelly days are actually in play now, or not yet?
No, they don't start until January or July.
And do we see those actually potentially taking some of that overtime
Well,
and reducing it more? Or
we
can't
we will reduce some FLSA overtime to the tune of about $300,000 a year. There's some overtime associated with that, so it's really a push on that. Several years ago, we had a reduction in our overtime because we were long-staffed. When we closed the engine companies, we didn't lay people off, so we had some extra people. So that reduced the overtime expenditures. We're trending back to historical levels to maintain our daily operations at minimum staffing. I think next year we're budgeted at 1.1 or 1.2, which is pretty standard for a department our size.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Member Berger?
Yeah, just to refresh my memory, the years of Budget Committee are all blending together for me. How many stations are currently physically there but with not manned?
2.
Okay.
Station 8 at Chemeketa campus is not staffed, and Station 11 in West Salem is not staffed. And they have been that way since May of 2012.
Thank you.
They're staffed a day or two here and there, but I have to tell you, the last year, they really, I would say they're not staffed.
Okay, thank you.
Member Bailey?
Kind of along that line, but the reduction in the response time for 2013 is not probably, as they say, statistically significant, but it is a downturn. Can we attribute that to anything, and is it related to the station closures? Do we know where that's happening?
Absolutely. It happens across our system because we move to fill the holes, and we collapse to the core. Most of our calls are in the core of town. We have calls on the periphery as well. But when you close a station, stations around that station have to respond to catch those calls. They have to travel a further distance. You can only get from point A to point B so fast. And so, take Station 8, for example, calls that are all the way up in the northeast part of the district. Station 3 is our busiest station. They're the station that's backing up Station 8. The Station 3 ran over 3,100 calls last year. They're backing up Station 8, so if they're not available, now we're pulling from Station 2 on Madison Street. If they're not available, we're pulling from downtown, Station 1 on Trade Street. So because we are thinner, we're spread a little thinner than we were before. We had 11 resources before, 11 engine companies and 2 ladder companies in service every day. With the 9 engine companies, you can imagine our call volume went up 698 calls last year from 2012. So we increased almost 700 calls with 2 less resources on. That's 6 firefighters less on duty each day. So when you spread yourself thinner, your travel times increase, and it's system-wide. It's more impactful in the district where the engine is missing. Certainly, we closed those 2 districts because they had the lowest number of calls. So we try to do the greatest good for the greatest number with the resources we have. But the travel times in those districts are going to be longer than some of the other districts. So it's definitely related to resource levels. Like I said, in 2012 with 11 engine companies, 11 engine companies part of the year, and then we closed it in May, so part of the year we had 9 engine companies. We achieved the standard 74.32% of the time. We dropped 2.5%, which statistically doesn't look like very much, but when you run 10,000 priority 1 calls, that's 253 people who didn't get the response time that they got didn't get it this year. So, and 85% is our goal, and we're at 71. So think about how many people that is. It's close to 3,000 that we'd want to have that type of response time that aren't getting that response time.
Yep.
Just a follow-up. So what was going on in 06 and 05 and 07 that caused things to be low? Were there similar capacity issues in the system?
In 05, I think in 05 we added the 10th engine sometime in that year, and so that's why you see the increase in 06. I think that's the time frame. So we had 9 engines then. I will tell you, we have done a lot of things between 2004. I think we were at 57% with 9 engine companies. To 2013, we're at 71.79. So that's remarkable in itself.
Yeah.
Dispatch improvements. Dispatch has done a great job of reducing their call taking time, which helps us get there quicker. It takes time off the response. Our folks are hustling out the station. They've always done that, but we've really put an emphasis on that. I'm asking our folks to try to save 3 seconds off of every priority 1 emergency next year. Now, 3 seconds is like, we can do that. We can do that, Chief. That, when you multiply that times 10,000 calls, that's 8.5 hours of time saved, and that's another 100 citizens that will get the response time we wanted to have next year that didn't get it last year. So going to 73%, going up 1% is 100 more people. So that's what happened in 05. 08, the big spike in calls there was I believe we had commercial flights at the airport in that time frame, and we had to do standbys for those, and those counted as a run, and so that's why you see a big drop, and I think they were here for 9, and then they dropped in 10. Our call volume has been pretty consistent, 10, 11, and 12. This year, 4.2% increase is a pretty big jump for us. And fires, 6.6%, that's 27 fires. There was 427 fires total. So we're busier with the same amount of resources we had last year. And I still think there's, this much that we can increase to 73% with our existing resources. At some point, if call volume continues to go up, we're going to plateau.
It sounds to me like, we're approaching the point where you've wrung about as much efficiency out of the system as you can, and from there, it's just simple math that you can't accommodate an increase in number of calls, particularly as population, development comes back, population continues to grow, and so on, and that we're going to have to bite this bullet here at some point.
And I think that's where we're at. Like I said, I've talked with our folks and said, hey, I want to achieve 73% next year. That's about 1.5% higher than we achieved this last year. I think we can do that. It depends on how many more additional calls we have and that workload. And when you have fewer resources, then you have to be more intelligent about how you use them. And I think we have done a good job of prioritizing our calls. In 2005, we did not have our call prioritization system in place, where we critiqued calls at the dispatch center to really decide if it was a priority 1 emergency or not. Do we need to go lights and siren, and do we need to send all these trucks and resources to this call? We implemented that in 2007, and you see there was an immediate jump in 2008, and we've pretty much maintained that level. That's because the dispatchers are asking a series of questions quickly to really send us to the most critical priority calls. And in 2005, I think we had 13,000 priority 1 calls. We have 10,000 now, so 3,000 calls have been downgraded. We still respond to them, but you're not going to die from a broken ankle. You're not going to die from a scraped knee, and so those don't require a priority 1 response. And if they're queued in the system or their response is a little slower, we want to get to the heart attacks, the strokes, the structure fires, the critical incidents where imminent life threat is involved, so we can prevent, save lives if possible. And time is your enemy when you're having an event like that. The other thing that I would add is the other thing that we're doing different now is we are much more connected with the hospital. Last year we saved 25 people who were having cardiac events or needed stents placed in because of heart issues in conjunction with the hospital. 4 of those were actually CPR code saves. 5 of those were actually CPR code saves, which is pretty rare to have that happen in the field. And the other 20 were folks that got to the emergency room in a timely fashion because of quick response and patient care in the field, directly to the cath lab, got their stent placed. They walked out of the hospital, no neurological deficit. That's 25 people. That's quality of life. They're going back to their families. They're going back to jobs. That's in conjunction with the hospital, and that's something, while it's not on our initiative list here, that's something that I think we are going to take a good look at. The fire department's going to be doing a foundation as well and looking at increasing CPR knowledge and AEDs located through the community. Our save rate, witness bystander save rate now is 42%. Highest in the nation is 59. That's where we want to be. We want to have the highest save rate in the nation. And so we got some work to do to get there. Most of it's public education and letting people know about that stuff. So there's good work going on out there. We're making a difference. Our crews make a difference. And Rural Metro is a good partner for us. But like I said, we're plateaued probably with our resources.
Member Nanke?
Thank you. Excellent lead-in. Rural Metro.
Yes.
Are we able to still maneuver around where they're situated to help pull down times, or?
Absolutely, we actively do that. Our contract allows, we are the EMS provider, the fire department. We manage the system. We have control over where they locate their resources. We constantly analyze response times. We made some changes when we shut Engine 11, for example. We made some changes in our staffing order of when an ambulance would move in and out of West Salem, so we had the ambulance over there more than we did before because we lost an engine company. So we take into account those types of things. They have 9 ambulances in the system at peak periods, and so we deploy those away from our fire stations to better cover the dirt. We still don't cover we call it covering the dirt, the travel distance. We don't cover the dirt as well as we should. There's some areas, Illahee is a good example of that. We don't cover the dirt very well there. And so in the future, those are things we would look at, is how do we better cover the dirt to provide the service to the citizens where they're at. So, but yes, we do control that. 2015, we will be rebidding the contract for ambulance services. That'll be 10 years. They've been a good partner. We've learned a lot going through this, and I think this is a model system. When people look at making changes, there's still people doing what we did before, the fire-based, but they're having to charge $2,000 for an ambulance transport, and it's some crazy stuff like that. So I think it's a good relationship, and like I said, we'll be rebidding that in 2015.
And that potentially is the increase 2005 to 2006 because we added more resources that were more distributed as well? Then?
Yeah. Yes. Rural Metro started in July of 2005, and we added Engine 10. I want to say it was earlier in the year. We had it in a trailer out at the site. Right. So yeah, those two things certainly make a difference. Engine 11, I want to say, was I'm racking my brain here, 08, 09 time frame, because that's about when the station was completed. So there's a little jump there, and then after that, it's pretty. The call volume is pretty consistent, some up and downs. And this year there's a little bigger. Those aren't statistically, significant, yeah, but there's a trend there, and just want to draw your attention to that.
Definitely. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Chief. And let's take just a short break to stretch our legs and get our brains back in order here, and then we'll move on. So let's be back in about 3 minutes. The Community Development Department. Mr. Gross, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Glenn Gross, and I'm the Director of the Community Development Department. The employees of the Community Development Department are really focused on, first and foremost, making Salem a great place to live and work. We help neighborhoods feel secure and inviting by towing away junk vehicles and cleaning up garbage. Our department reviews and inspects the building plans to ensure the buildings are constructed safely. We take great pride in our commitment to customer service in the land development permitting process. And finally, we help the community plan for the future so succeeding generations can thrive in Salem. Here's a breakdown of how the 50 employees and $7.5 million of our budget is allocated among 3 divisions: building and safety, neighborhood enhancement, and planning. We also provide support to the Salem Public Arts Commission. If you don't know, the Art Commission was established in 2010 for the selection, acquisition, and maintenance of public art, and is hopefully funded by 1/2% of the cost of major city improvement projects. Now, we haven't had a lot of major city improvement projects since it's founded, but eventually we hope that's where that fund will grow. The building and safety staff does much more than just review the building permits and inspect the buildings. They also operate the one-stop permit application center for the city, where they issue permits for a variety of activities, from parking to taxi cab licenses. Unlike other divisions in the department, this division is not dependent on general fund, and rather it's a restricted fund that's reliant on fee revenues. The planning staff is split actually, the work is split. The staff is not split. The work is split between current and long-range planning work. And current planning consists of reviewing land use proposals for the consistency with adopted codes and ordinances. The staff takes great pride in their ability to provide exceptional service. They help the applicant navigate through the application process, and they also help the interested public participate in the review of those applications. Long-range planning, on the other hand, is concerned with studies and plans that are aimed at ensuring the city has adequate land for future growth, and that the type and quality of that growth and development is consistent with our community values. Finally, the Neighborhood Enhancement Division is dedicated to maintaining Salem's livability. This division is generally split between code compliance and neighborhood services. Our code compliance officers are really on the front line of protecting Salem's livability. They also maintain a program of apartment inspections and licensing to ensure a decent and safe living environment for folks that live in apartments in the city. The staff performs inspections on over 4,200 units per year. Our neighborhood services staff supports the 18 neighborhood associations in the city, and this staff leads the creation of partnerships with businesses and other agencies to fund neighborhood enhancing improvements. A separate and smaller component of the division is the Youth Development Coordinator. This one FTE focuses on positive adolescent development programs that literally touches thousands of Salem youth. This includes supporting after-school programs, family skills training programs, and those programs serving impoverished students. Excuse me. Our youth coordinator is passionate about finding leadership opportunities that civically engage and mobilize teens to improve their neighborhoods and their community. We've been working on a lot of exciting projects lately, and up on the slide, we're just highlighting a few of those. I could talk for a long time about all the things we're doing, but here's some highlights. Our building and safety staff is moving towards a mobile office solution for inspections. And by that, what we mean is our building inspectors will, once we have this program up and running, will be able to enter the results of their inspections on site via a remote access laptop. This way, our customers will have real-time access to the status of their project 24/7. So it'll also allow our inspectors to spend more time in the field doing inspections and not have to travel back and forth from the office. It'll result in significant increases in personnel efficiencies. The planning staff is completing the first neighborhood plan update in the last 10 years. That would be the Morningside plan, called Morningside 360. This has been a very successful project. It's been based upon a very broad public outreach process that has involved well over 100 neighborhood residents, property owners, and business owners. One of the areas that the plan is focused on is the future of the I-5 Kubler Freeway interchange area. This is the last undeveloped freeway interchange in the city, so it's a critically important thing to look at. The neighborhood enhancement staff continues to support neighborhood associations in various ways, including the popular neighborhood partnership program. Our department, like all city departments, is facing some challenges, mostly related to limited resources. The good news of an improving economy brings with it the challenge of keeping up with increased permit activity at the current staffing level. And our code enforcement program will need to continuously review our resource allocation, keeping risk to life and property as the highest priority. So going forward, we'll continue to look for ways to streamline our operation, deploy technology where appropriate to help meet the challenges that we know lie ahead. But we are looking forward to those with great vigor. Thank you.
All right, any questions from the committee? All right.
No questions? Okay.
That's easy for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gross. All right, moving on to item 10 on the agenda, overview of the Urban Development Department, and Mr. Wales.
Good evening. I'm John Wales, the Director of the Urban Development Department. I'm very appreciative of being here tonight, and I'd like to give you a brief overview of urban development, giving you some highlights of how we're organized, what programs and funds we manage, some of the services that we provide, and then again talking about some of our initiatives and what we see happening as some challenges for the future. So the organization of the department has not changed in the past year. We're a department of approximately 77.5 FTE. What you might not know is that out of that, the 77 FTE, approximately 55% is employed at the Housing Authority, and about 45% or 34 employees are employees of the city. We've organized into 6 lines of business. The Director's Office and the Financial and Administrative Services Division support and direct the operations of these 6 lines of business. What you might not also appreciate from this slide is that unlike any other department in the city, we operate within 6 legal entities. Sorry, 3 legal. We have enough of 6. 3 legal entities, including the City of Salem. We are employees of the City of Salem. We are contracted to the Urban Renewal Agency and provide services to the Urban Renewal Agency. And we also manage the Housing Authority, which is a separate legal entity as well. So if you see us on a council night, we are here all night for housing, urban renewal, and city services. What I also wanted to point out is that the Salem Housing Authority's budget is a separate budget from the process that you're all going through here this year. It is a federal budget. It's one that's funded almost entirely by federal money, and so they're on a federal cycle. And their budget comes due in September, and the commission, the Housing Authority Commission, will be reviewing and adopting it then. So while I'm going to talk a little bit about the Housing Authority, because that's what we do, and to give you an overview of what they do, we're not going to be, as far as any budget conversation, we're not going to be addressing that tonight, if that makes sense. So when you look at the funds that we manage, there are 9. It's rather a large number of funds for a department. Approximately, we have a budget of approximately, this is City and Urban Renewal Agency budget of about almost $63 million, of which 74% of that is in the Urban Renewal Agency. And those funds are primarily in the Urban Renewal Agency Construction Fund, the bottom 3, the Debt Fund, and the Salem Conference Center. The other point I just want to make from this slide is that while we are budgeted in the general fund, we're a small player in the general fund. We typically, over I'd say the past few years, have budgeted approximately $4.3 million of general fund activities. But over the year, as we charge out to other programs, other funds, the Urban Renewal Agency projects, the actual net impact to the general fund is closer to $1 million a year, and that's been pretty consistent. So while we budget we really have a net impact of about $1 million. So we're not, we're in the general fund, but we're not a large player. So looking at those 6 lines of businesses and the areas that, the services that we provide, the Economic Development Division manages our 7 urban renewal areas. It focuses on business retention and expansion, job creation, business investment, mostly private business investment activities. We're very focused on trying to remove barriers for development, and we do that through our urban renewal programs and projects, and we try to fill gaps and encourage development to go where it normally might not, or where the market might not be willing to invest. We are responsible, this year we became responsible for managing the Economic Improvement District, the EID funds downtown, and we provide support to that and support to the city manager and the steering committee that she oversees for that function. We also provide support to 4 advisory boards. 3 of them are with the Urban Renewal Agency, and 1 is with the Mill Creek Corporate Center. It's the implementation committee.
And in addition to that, we are for the city, the liaison with our economic development partners, both at the state and local and regional levels. We manage and coordinate the relationships with Business Oregon, with our partners at ODOT, with the COG, with the county, and are the point of contact for that, and as well as the contact for coordinating with all of our internal departments as well. There's really nobody in the city that doesn't touch economic development in some point. So we are the ones that are basically the liaison and coordinate those activities. The Parking Services Division manages parking resources. That's be the garages as well as the on-street parking. We implement the parking policy for the city. We manage the enforcement of parking regulations and provide meter collection and repairs primarily around the Capitol Mall, where we have our metered operations. We primarily focus in the downtown area with parking services and around the Capitol Mall, but we also have residential parking permits in some neighborhoods, and we have time limitations in other parts of the city, West Salem, and around some of the high schools that you probably are familiar with. We maintain and enforce over 1,600 parking meters, time limit, and prohibited parking zones, and those would include such things as I said, the residential areas, the carpool zones, and the downtown employee district. Finally, the real property services section is our real estate arm for the city. They provide services not only to city but also urban renewal real estate transactions. They acquire property, they do our dispositions of property, and they manage our leases, not only in our garages but at the airport as well. The Housing and Social Services division, you also may know it as our federal programs group, provides services to low and moderate income individuals and families that include excuse me, safe and affordable housing, emergency food and medical care, and economic opportunities. And we also administer our CDBG and our federal home funds out of that program, which provides money from HUD and the city, and in addition to that, administers the city's allocation of general fund for social services programs. This division manages two boards, the HUDAC board, the Housing and Urban Development Advisory Committee, and the Social Services Advisory Board, who advise us on our funding priorities for these federal dollars. And we are in that process right now, trying to get those applications evaluated and prioritized. We also manage the Salem Airport, a 750-acre facility with over 30,000 operations a year. It's an airport that we manage to a higher standard. It's a certified airport. They call it a Part 139 airport. It's a certification that the FAA issues, and it allows us to operate at a commercial as a commercial airport, which means that we have to be held to a higher standard as far as the way we operate, the regulatory compliance and requirements that go along with it. We have approximately 88 acres of undevelopable land at the airport, which we are marketing. Expansion of the Garmin facility was one of those examples of developing or expanding at the airport. And in addition, we have 130 leases, ground leases with hangars at the facility as well. We manage the day-to-day operations. A major function is to maintain our compliance with our state and federal grants and with grant assurances, that we operate to a very high standard of safety.
And in addition, the airport staff manages all of our federal-funded projects. We have you may or may not be aware that we're doing a major lighting replacement project out at the airport this spring, and next year there will be a replacement of our major taxiway. It's called Taxiway Charlie, which runs the north and south length of the west side of the airport. And finally, I'd just like to mention that the Salem Housing Authority, whose budget's not part of this process, has a significant role for the city and in our department. The Housing Authority owns about 650 housing units for low and moderate income families that they own and manage. They provide long-term rental assistance to almost 3,500 families in our community. They administer more than 3,200 Section 8 vouchers to individuals and families in need, including veterans. All in all, it's about 10,000 people in our community that the Housing Authority serves through its federal programs. So looking to the coming year, there are several initiatives that we see in the future. Economic development, the story continues to be job retention, expansion, and recruitment, and the mayor talked a lot about that in the State of the City address this afternoon. That is a #1 priority for us, and we will continue. As we move forward through this economy, we've seen that a lot of the activity over the past couple of years has been our local businesses, the ones that are already here, and as the mayor mentioned, that are really pulling us out of this recession. And in the coming year, I think we're going to see more recruitment in some of our areas in the Mill Creek Corporate Center and in the Energy Park, as well as we move to attract new development and new businesses from outside the area. So that actually is quite exciting. We're going to be exploring options at the council's direction to implement new parking technology, and I'm stressing, and this is only in the Capitol Mall area, this is not in the downtown, if there's any confusion. So we've got meters out around the Capitol Mall and in that area that are literally at their life end. And we got direction from the council last year to explore some higher technology that would enable us to go forward and to manage that program in the 21st century. So we will be moving with that. We're going to be planning for future projects in the North Gateway urban renewal area. Some of you may be aware that we have been focusing on one project, and in conversations with the agency board over the past several months, they've asked us to step back and look at what other opportunities we have to increase jobs, to stimulate investment, and to increase the tax base in the North Gateway area. So we will be focusing more resources on that and making that a priority. Supporting the redevelopment of Pringle Square is going to be a big item for this year, and we're very excited. Everybody is moving forward on this project. We have a lot to do. The vision was great, but implementing now is where we are, so that will be part of next year. The Economic Improvement District, if it is approved by the property owners this spring down in the downtown area, we will continue to focus on the four primary areas of maintaining downtown cleanliness, the marketing, the advertising, the beautification, and communication with the downtown stakeholders really seems to be the thrust of what that advisory group is looking at. So we will be, if it's approved, we will continue to implement those priorities. And the airport, I'd like to say we're going to complete infrastructure improvements. I'd rather restate that as that we're going to continue with our infrastructure improvements. I've learned after 4 years of running the airport, you never complete anything. It just is an asset that continues to grow, and so we're going to move forward, as I mentioned, with the lighting system replacement this year, which is funded by the FAA, and we will be working on pavement and striping in the coming years. What
I've wanted to do for several years, and we're actually working on it now, is to create a business plan for the airport. We'd like to be able to show the council and the community what we see in the short term, what we see in the long term, and to give some more strategy and focus to where we think the airport is going. So that will be an initiative for the future as well. Challenges. Whenever I talk, I'm always saying jobs retention is creation of jobs and investment in Salem, and that will continue, and it will always be a challenge, and one we will continue into the future. But on areas of concern, federal funding, I think there's no secret that there's uncertainty with the way federal programs are going. We've seen a decline in both our CDBG and home allotments over the past few years. I think we're going to plateau this year. I think we're going to be okay, but I expect that it's something we're going to have to continue to deal with, and there's more need than what we have dollars for. So that will be a challenge. The replacement of the failing parking meter technology at the Capitol Mall is going to be a challenge of the future, and this will be an implementation, and I'm thinking a year and a half out for that to happen. And then the funding challenges that I mentioned for deferred maintenance at the airport and within our parking structures are going to be issues that we're going to have to wrestle with and focus on in the future. And so with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Member Bednarz?
Thank you. I wanted to, a couple things I wanted to cover. First on going back, and you don't have to go to the slide, but the slide that showed the percentage of FTEs per sector of your responsibility. And I was wondering if we've had any impact since we've changed the rules of downtown parking. Are there it's 9 individuals who are working on the parking? Has that increased or decreased since we've implemented, and is it expected to stay the same?
Well, a lot of that, what happens in downtown is funded through the parking fund, and that is a fund that has had challenges for a long time. They're not new, and the resources for that fund come from really 2 primary areas. One is from a tax that businesses pay downtown in support of the free parking, and second is from the permit revenues that we get in our garages. Well, those revenues have not been going up, and our costs have been going up much faster. And so we have, over the years, or I'd say the past 5 years, been subsidizing the parking fund with other funds. And I think you've heard this conversation before, but the Urban Renewal Agency has actually backfilled the almost $5 million worth of capital improvements to our garages. Our leasehold fund has also been used periodically to subsidize. So while there haven't been, so that's kind of the dynamic. It's not a new issue. It's not just because we've got a new challenges downtown with parking. It's an ongoing problem that we're going to have to address. I will mention that that fund has seen a reduction, maybe it was 2 years ago, when we laid off almost 13 of our security employees. And we transferred that function to the police department. We mentioned the downtown team. We've tried to fund a couple of police officers out of that. So it's a fund that's been challenged for quite some time. It's going to need some attention as to how we're going to go forward, and that's going to be the conversation of this coming year and probably the next few years as well.
My intent of asking the question is to try to figure out relative, I'm not going to say apply so many people, but I'm trying to figure out relative to the budget, or figure out relative to our policies, where we're spending money, where we need to spend more money or less money. So I mean, the questions that continue on to things like that are, with the new parking technology, presumably that will be going in the next year or two, will that speed up so you don't have to speed up the ability to look at over-expired individuals? That'll speed up things like that, speed up so you don't have to have as many staff.
It could. As some of the research we've done has shown that where you could have an enforcement officer drive by a row of meters and see blinking lights and see that they're expired, when you go to an electronic mechanism such as pay and display, or what they have in Portland and other communities, you have to go nearer to the cars. So that may, in some instances, depends on where the location is, that may require more
more staff than less. And we just have to take that into account when we pick the system that we pick and what are the, so right now, we've got a staff that's working very hard. It's supplemented with some seasonal workforce. I can honestly say we're not covering every piece of the city or every inch of the city the way we'd like to, but we are trying to manage with the best resources, with the resources that we have. So that's, I guess, what I'd answer.
Okay, and then I know that we don't have the decision at this point about whatever technology that we go to, but is the intent, the Capitol Mall is not just a matter of State Street and Court Street. It is where meters are, the old mechanical meters are located.
That's
currently,
correct. That's
and nothing
correct.
else. And that's what I wanted to make clear.
Well, it's the Capitol Mall, and then some of the areas further to the north of the downtown and to the west and to the south, we were asked to look at those areas as well as whether they would benefit from the new technology.
For example, those along Church Street.
Right, but outside of
Smack
outside of the parking district, downtown.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Member Berger?
I don't want to wade into downtown parking, but
Good.
I will. The switch from 2-hour parking to what we have now, was staffing levels changed during that switch? Do we have the same number of people enforcing parking downtown before and after the switch, or did that change?
We have tried to figure out what the right balance is. What happened with that switch is that where we were primarily issuing citations for parking over 2 hours or parking too long, we no longer have that. And so the enforcement is more geared toward making sure that employees and employers are not parking in the downtown. And the process to do that is lengthy. We have to notice them, we have to provide a notice, we have to keep records, we have to verify, in fact, that the employee whose car we have identified is being downtown on the street is actually working that day. And so it is a very labor-intensive process to issue a ticket for parking on the street downtown as opposed to where it was before. So we've got right now approximately four enforcement officers dedicated to that, but it's a much higher expense to write a ticket.
So was 4 what we had before, and 4 we still
we didn't
have?
know. It depended on the day. It was three to 4, but given that we still have to, we've got an enforcement staff of 8. Is that right? No, 9, 8. Oh, yes, all right, sorry. 8 with 2 seasonal employees, and they're on different rotations, and they enforce 6 days a week. And so we're trying to deploy the staff where we get the best return. We're starting to learn what the patterns are downtown. So to answer your question, we had 3 or 4. Depending on the day before, we're not using more than 4 now. But the difference, as far as what the city is able to enforce, has changed dramatically.
Thank you.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes, thank you, Director Wells. An excellent report, and I just wanted to take a couple minutes. I have a comment and then a question, but the comment is to say to you and to all of your staff, I know that being right downtown as you are, you have been the ones to bear the brunt of much of the disharmony downtown over the parking issue, and I want to say how gracefully you and your staff have really fielded questions and dealt with the public and tried to be that buffer sometimes between the disgruntled citizen and the rest of us, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Looking ahead, do you anticipate any kind of staffing changes in the Urban Development Department? I see an increase in activity. I certainly see that we're busier and plan to be busier in the coming year than we are right now, because I'm hearing of more building permits and more plans and more dreams for downtown and other parts of the community. Is there any effort at all, do you think, to be able to add staff to your department?
Thank you, Mayor, for asking. One of the things that is not really apparent when you look at, although we manage 7 urban renewal areas, they're at various levels of maturity. And where we are now is kind of in a dip with the number of projects that we have in our urban renewal areas. You may recall that in downtown, Riverfront downtown, we're probably not going to have significant bonding capacity for new projects until 2018. Till then, we're kind of in a mode of pay-as-you-go, doing with the resources that we have. We've just closed Pringle URA. We've stopped collecting tax increment in Fairview, which is an older urban renewal area. Mill Creek is, we've pretty much used the staff that we can on the projects. We're funding more projects, but we're not using as much staff. And so we've had just almost the reverse in the past few years. And it's somewhat predictable because you can, if you look at our project allocation, our workload, we don't have the number of projects that we did, and so that's had an impact, as we've had in the past. I think that will significantly change in a few years, but right now we're in this kind of trough where we don't have quite the project workload that can sustain staff. Now, there are pockets, like you're suggesting, like the parking, where, but those are general fund expenses that that those would come out of. That would be, that, you know, we know that we're short.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Wales.
Okay.
We'll move on to the overview of the library, and Ms. Towie is going to walk us through that.
There we go. Chair Clausen, Mayor Peterson, Budget Committee members, I'm B.J. Towie, Salem Public Library Administrator, and I would like to welcome you to Salem Public Library. As reflected citywide, we've heard tonight, library staffing has slowly been declining over the last several years. From a recent high of 52 employees, we're down to about 45 full-time equivalent employees. Approximately 85% of the library budget is for personal services, which are fixed costs. Seasonal employees enable us to maintain the quality of customer service that we have during peak times, and volunteers are an invaluable part of the customer service that we provide in our workforce. About 10% of our budget is materials, books, DVDs, AV, the public borrows, and the remaining 5% of our budget is spent on running the library, supplies, equipment, and utilities. We've seen a drop in the number of people walking in the door at the library, but we see several factors that we think account for this. The use of our virtual branch has increased. This includes our downloadable materials, our online databases, the use of the library's website, and the use of the library's online catalog. The circulation of our e-resources has also increased. E-books, downloadable audio and video materials circulated over 55,000 times last year. It's not a trivial number, but it still is only 4% of our total 1.3 million circulations. We're trying to work smarter, not harder at the library, so we led a charge with the other 17 CCRLS libraries to increase the number of times that an item can be renewed, because it's a lot easier to renew from home than it is to come into the library and renew it. So now people can renew 3 times instead of once. Patrons love being able to renew their materials from home. It saves them a drive-in. They can also pay fines and fees online as well. The reduced number of hours at West Salem Branch Library have impacted the number of visits that we've had to that location. And finally, we also believe through anecdotal evidence that the increase in parking meters at the library has led to less usage of the building itself, although we don't have any hard data on that. And in spite of this drop, we still see over 12,000 people who come into the library every single week to visit and borrow materials. We're thrilled to see an increase in the number of checkouts for both our physical and virtual collection. We subscribe to a new product called Collection HQ. It's helping us to be strategic about what items we buy for our collection and also which ones we keep in the collection. It's based on the way the community uses our materials, and it's really going to help us make a difference in how we keep our collection strong. We have 6 units that serve our community. Library administration develops our policy and long-range planning for the organization and provides leadership and guidance to our 3 library support boards. We have an advisory board, a foundation, and of course our friends of the library. We also focus on going out into the community to visit groups to tell them about the things that the library does. Adult Services focuses on the reading and information needs of our adult community members. The desk provides reference and reader's advisory service in person, over the phone, through email, and on internet chat. They also address the community's technology needs by offering internet access and general technology assistance in the technology center downstairs. Other services that Adult Services provide include tablet and e-reader help, which is a really growing area, interlibrary loan, literary and entertainment programs, and help converting analog media to digital formats at the transformation station. Youth Services. They support children and teens through a variety of materials and programs and services. They provide 4 interactive hands-on exhibits that over 4,000 people visit every month in our Children's Discovery Room. The Summer Reading Club last year had 6,100 children and teens who read over 110,000 hours this last summer. 76 in-house programs were provided to nearly 2,000 middle and high schoolers, and over 800 children's programs last year were presented for over 88,000 people. People love our programs. It's just a glimpse of what we do for youth. If you've been in the children's room recently, you've seen it's a very busy place. Our circulation staff is the first and last point of contact for most people who visit the library. As community members enter through the doors, they're greeted and often directed by this staff. Last year, they helped people check out over 500,000 items. The remainder of the checkouts were accomplished at our 3M self-check machines. They also filled 130,000 hold requests, registered 11,000 new borrowers, worked with 37,000 patrons to help resolve account issues, and helped connect with the community at 7 outreach events. Technical Services. This is our behind-the-scenes division. They're responsible for acquiring, describing, and providing access to all of the library's print, media, and electronic collections. The library adds about 30,000 items a year: books, magazines, CDs, DVDs, and they're all purchased, cataloged, and physically processed for public use. The work of this division continues to evolve in tandem with rapidly changing technology and more sophisticated permissions management and metadata control required by our electronic resources. West Salem Branch provides basic library service 4 days each week, 4 hours each day. We've begun focusing on providing a greater number of new materials for our West Salem patrons, and they are greeting this with open arms. The library completed its strategic plan last year, and it includes 5 strategic initiatives. We have the privilege of being one of the city services that our community members really want to use. They come to us because they want to be there. And we place our highest emphasis on providing great customer service. New this year is the fact that our reference librarians have gotten out from behind the reference desk and they're roving the main floor to find patrons who need assistance, who might be too shy to come up and ask, and help them right on the spot. Our commitment is to keep customers satisfied. We think it's hard to overestimate how important free word-of-mouth advertising is from our satisfied customers. We've placed a major emphasis on welcoming physical and virtual spaces. We want to serve people where they are, whether they come in, they call on the telephone, they email us, or they use our live chat to talk with a librarian. We completed a community assessment survey last year that indicated that they see the library as a community center as well as a source for materials. We provide a clean, comfortable, and safe place for people to gather and exchange ideas. Our 3 library boards continue to support our facility plan to renovate areas of the library. This fall, they're funding a much-needed renovation to the children's room, which has been very well loved over the last 20 years. It'll include a second activity and story room, new paint and carpeting, and technology enhancements. We're also very pleased to announce that a private donor is funding a design project that will allow us to convert prime real estate on our main floor that's currently used as storage into a reading room for the public. This architectural design plan will also create a cohesive approach to renovating and upgrading that entry area through circulation and reference to be more welcoming and more efficient. We proactively look for ways to address technology needs at the library. We'll very soon be loaning Chromebook laptops for use right in the technology center to augment those that are in our computer lab. Our youth services staff train teens and children in database use for homework and provide workshops for teens on how to create multimedia presentations for their own pleasure or for work, for schoolwork. And this youth services staff will soon provide early literacy modeling through our website so people can access it from home. We think it's really important to connect with our community. We've increased our outreach efforts by attending community events, looking for ways that we can support literacy within the community. Our partnerships with other organizations really strengthen our ability to do this. Our most active partner, I think, is the Assistance League of Salem. We have worked with them for decades on programs. They've just been a wonderful partner for us and have allowed us to reach 3,100 Salem Kaiser first graders for the last 30 years to introduce them to library services. They help us bring our summer reading club to the migrant education program during the summer. And they allow us to deliver materials to our citizens who are homebound. Over 100 people a month get materials brought to them by Assistance League volunteers through the library. We had a very generous gift from our friends of the library this year, a $10,000 gift that allows us to work with a professional marketing consultant. We're developing a formal PR campaign to ensure that our outreach and connection to the community is as successful as possible. And of course, all of our efforts culminate in the never-ending goal of nurturing a love of reading and knowledge for all ages. We too, of course, have our challenges. We know that our staff is our greatest asset at the library. But as we reduce the amount of money that we can put into our seasonal staffing, we have to ask our career staff to take on an ever-growing set of duties, just like the other departments we've heard about tonight. So we're constantly looking for ways to counteract employee burnout. You can do it for short periods of time, but over the long haul, it does take its toll. One of the library's primary roles is to provide public computers and internet access to community members, many of whom still do not own computers at home. But those computers in our lab were received through a Gates Foundation grant, which means they're all becoming outdated simultaneously. Replacing them with newer equipment is a budget challenge for us. CCRLS, our regional library service, is in the process of purchasing a new computer system for the 17 public libraries in this region. We really look forward to the new tools that this computer system will bring us, but we also have to acknowledge the time that it's going to take to train employees in a completely new computer system. We also know that we're able to spend less on books, AV, and electronic resources. At the same time, the cost of these materials are rising. We continue to find ways to optimize the library's book buying power and ensure that we're purchasing materials that our customers really want and need. As always, we look for ways to turn these challenges into opportunities to serve our Salem residents. If you have questions, I'd love to answer them.
All right, I'll jump in with a quick question, and then Member Berger and Member Bednarz. On the electronic side of books, I know I tried about a year ago to check out a couple books, and boy, the waiting lists were really long on the electronic licenses. Do we know, I mean, are people using them? Are they kind of sitting idle as people use them, or do we need more licenses to maybe make that a little bit more usable? Or, I don't know, I mean, it seems like a great resource as people start moving to more tablets and things along those lines for a benefit to the public.
The waiting list has been long because they are very well used. Happily, this is where one of our support boards has really jumped in to help. The Friends of the Library have given us $12,000 a year to buy additional copies of ebooks that are very popular.
Great.
Those materials are only available to Salem residents and anyone from outside the city who buys a full-service fee card. So that means that the waiting list on those really popular items has been cut way back.
Great.
Currently, people are not waiting. I mean, before it could have been a 3-year wait for a popular best-selling
That's
item.
what I was finding.
And now we're looking at 6 weeks, 8 weeks instead.
Okay, great, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Member Berger.
Anecdotally, it seems like you're busting at the seam with people, so I'm a little surprised to see an 11% decline, because every time I go in, I think this is just a lot of people doing a lot of things. How is that number calculated? You say people in the door. Are you actually measuring people as they come in the door? Or
Those security
is that
gates that you
checkouts?
walk through have a counter.
Okay.
So we do actually have a count of people passing by the gates. We also get to count the 4-year-old who runs around the gates more than once. But that happens every year, so we just think that's part of our count. But we still do have 12,000 people every week using us. So a drop, while 11% drop is significant to us, we know that people are accessing us in different ways now.
Go ahead.
And what was the amount of hours cut from West Salem?
We went from 31 hours to 16 hours 2 years ago.
Thank you.
All right, Member Bednarz, I believe you had a question.
Thank you. Again, my question is, I looked at ways that could we save money rather than actually about your program. I think the library is a great thing. I know it's well used. I'm just trying to figure out how to balance the budget at this point. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. First off, so do we have the numbers of the patrons that use the West Salem Library and the trend of the use of that library?
We've seen the use of the library about cut in half, because there's only 16 hours a week they can access the library. So cutting those hours has definitely
Had an effect.
had a major effect.
Okay, and then the other one was the percent of virtual library checkouts versus the traditional walk in, pick up a book and check out. And then where is that trending as well?
We're seeing the trend on checking out electronic resources is rising very quickly, much more quickly than the use of the physical collection is dropping. I mean, that's holding its own, but electronic resources, more and more people every birthday, every Christmas are getting ebooks to use.
It's literally the only way I end up using the library at this point is the virtual library. I don't go there unless we have a work session downstairs. I do go there, but not that often.
Roll in a cart with books for it.
Yes. And this all leads to the issue of personnel. If they're checking out via an electronic, do you need a person staffed? And that comes back to savings and budget, and that's why the question. I would love to see some sort of data on the trending and where things are headed. At what point can you take away a person because you don't have to have somebody physically there to take care of it? It's done electronically. or may not be able to, they'll find a place for that person to fit in, but I'd like to know those answers.
We can certainly get you information on that, but what we find is that our staff is kind of running constantly, and so any checkout that's done by the electronic machine, we're making up for and getting those holds pulled, the 130,000 holds that we fill every year, getting them on the shelves, getting materials reshelved, checking them in. After the snowstorm, we got 52 bins from CCRLS courier service. There's no end of work for circulation, even with the 3M self-checks.
So even the technologies, I mean, that's obviously where a lot of us are looking to speed up. We only have so many hours in the day.
That's right.
And how can we capitalize on the technology so that we can reduce the manpower, which is,
True.
as you said, the largest expense that you have.
It is.
So that's my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Doy. All right. Item number 12, internal services funds, and I believe Deputy City Manager Casey Duncan is going to take the podium.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure there. Well, I do have to first and foremost admit that I'm not a 35-year children's librarian, so please don't anticipate the same amount of animation from me during this presentation.
It would have spiced it up.
I would have liked that.
Nonetheless, I do love the city and my job and appreciate the opportunity to work here and make this presentation.
What about those internal funds?
Yeah. So we had a recent training talking about talent and career development, and during that they mentioned that you should stretch your employees by giving them tasks where there's only a 50 to 70% chance or probability that they'll succeed, and I'm hoping that Linda did not give me this assignment with that in mind. And judging by how that line went over 50% was probably on the high side. So I'll go ahead and as you can see by the number of people here, these individuals all represent various departments or divisions that are internal services. And so previous to this presentation, you've seen a lot of our direct services, and I liken them to the visible part of this public vehicle that we call the City of Salem. If you lift up the hood and underneath, what you'll see is the internal services departments that we have here. And much like your engine, when it's firing on all cylinders and things are working efficiently, you may not notice that it exists or that it's even there. But when something starts to malfunction or go wrong, you immediately notice the vitality of its importance. And it's much the same way with our internal services departments, serving the nearly 1,150 FTEs that we have here, and more than 156,000 people here in Salem. So tonight I get the opportunity to talk about some of those departments and divisions, including the city manager's office, the legal department, the facilities division, the IT department, our admin services division, which includes the fleet services, and our human resources. And I will cover these quickly, which I hope you appreciate. And at the 30,000-foot level, if you'd like to get down a little bit lower or into the weeds, we have staff here. I will recognize some of our department heads. We have our legal counsel, Dan Atchison, our IT director, Krishna Namburi, and Connie Manel, our HR director, and Deborah Bond, that you heard from previously. There she is. So they will be here and available for questions. So this is sort of an organizational chart for the entire city. Speaking of the city manager's office, we recently acquired the library under our office, and I have appreciated the opportunity to work closely with a great library administrator, BJ Toy, that you just heard from. And the facility services division, another internal service division, now reports to our assistant to the city manager, Christy Worcester, and we help and oversee the management of those divisions. We'll also talk about those divisions which are highlighted in sort of the green shade on the far right, starting with the city manager's office. So I'll go through and quickly mention some of the structure and statistics of the departments and division, how we serve the community, and as the other departments have done, our current initiatives and the challenges that we face. So in the city manager's office, as you can see, it's a staff of 10. 3 of those individuals work in our budget office, and it's quite a task that they have, overseeing funds totaling about $450 million, working with other departments to coordinate that effort. And I'll go into more detail. The primary function of the city manager's office is to serve as the administrative head of the city. We also provide staff for several boards and commissions of the city council and the mayor. Some of those that you may or may not be familiar with are the Human Rights Commission, the Mayor's International Council, Ag Forums, and other special groups that are put together, the Community Police Review Board, the Council Legislative Committee, and the Budget Committee, each of you here this evening. Some of the services we provide include budget preparation and monitoring for the City of Salem and also the Urban Renewal Agency. Human rights and relations support, that's in accordance with Chapter 97 of Salem Revised Code pertaining to human rights. If there are complaints regarding violations of that chapter, we investigate those and provide help to those in need. We also oversee the franchise administration of 22 franchise agreements, and there are more than 54 different utilities within the City of Salem who pay the city in some form for the privilege of using the public property for their services. Our public information activities, and also this year we added a strategic initiatives coordinator with council's approval to help us identify and implement goals for the city and major objectives. And we're finding ways to make that position effective as we go out in the community and implement the council's vision and direction. So in addition to our day-to-day operation, our focus is on the council goals and directives. We have ongoing compliance with some of the federal laws, with all the grants that we receive. There are federal assurances that we have to make that will comply with laws, including Title VI, the American with Disabilities Act, and others. And our human rights coordinator helps oversee that effort. Our franchise agreement, we want to maximize the revenue potential for the city, which is difficult as people make different technological changes and choices that they have to continue to find ways that we can bring in that valuable revenue source, which is the second largest for the general fund behind property tax. We coordinate our legislative work both at the state and federal level, provide information services to the public, and work on major projects right now. Some of those include the Minnow Brown Island Bridge, the Pringle Square development, and other economic development opportunities. So there's sort of a recurring theme throughout these internal service challenges, and as with all the other departments, the issue with maintaining stability as we have revenues that do not keep pace with operational costs, and finding more efficient ways to deal with those. And a lot of that is Chair Clausen mentioned earlier with the compression map that you saw. Compression has a lot to do with that, with the largest source of revenue being property tax, and more than, I believe, 57% of homes within the city of Salem now being in compression, and not seeing that up to 3% growth in the assessed value and taxable tax revenue coming to the city has impacts on our ability to provide services. And lastly, I will mention that there is some pending litigation regarding a recent Senate bill that lowered some of the cost of PERS, and we're expecting some sort of a decision to go to the Oregon Supreme Court, hopefully by late this year, to get a determination as to what that's going to do to our PERS rates in the future. We've set aside what we've been able to save because of that legislation into a reserve fund at this point, and we'll look at options depending on the outcome of that. Hoping that it's favorable and that those savings will continue to stay within our beginning working capital and fund the services that we have. As we know, looking out at our 5-year forecast, we've still got up to $6 million in service reductions to make over that period of time in order to reach that beginning working capital target that we have. So now to our legal department. This year, the city council added 2 full-time positions, an assistant city attorney 2 for general counsel, and also an additional staff assistant to serve the general counsel. There are 13 budgeted, and with those 2 additions, 15 authorized positions within the legal department, a total budget of $1.8 million. One area in which we really appreciate the service that they provide to the city is defending the city against claims, and you can see there that we were able to successfully defeat 11 claims. The total claims were about $10.8 million, and we paid out $95,000. With liability defense and civil litigation claims, we settled 2 of those. Total paid was about a third, or about a fourth of what the claims against the city were. So general counsel provides legal advice. They review all of our documents. They assist us with our negotiations with the bargaining units, and in all aspects of city governance, ensure that we're complying with the law. They also represent the city before administrative boards and the courts. Our civil litigation services through the legal department include legal defense, writs, eminent domain, and appellate practice. The department also provides criminal prosecution of misdemeanors such as traffic violations and other quality of life crimes. The city recorder is the clerk of the city council, the city's election officer, and also responsible for our records management and serves as the city's archivist. Some initiatives within the legal department, with the addition of the 2 positions, they're looking for ways to be more efficient. We have several major projects that have been placed on hold due to some staffing vacancies, and they're also looking at a new file maintenance system. One of the themes that we've heard over and over tonight is records management, and with the public retention laws that we have, there is a need to maintain large volumes of data. We also need to maintain the ability to access that in an efficient way and quickly in order to assist us with completing our tasks. One system that the legal department is looking at will allow them to integrate better with the software systems of the police and the courts and make operations more efficient as we communicate with each other, I guess, in the respect of the interoperability with police and fire, being able to communicate systems with one another. We're also looking to update the criminal code as well as certain chapters of the Salem Revised Code related to licensing and some of our real estate policies. The legal department is also working, let me get this slide up here, on some of the administrative rules, updating them for our Public Works department. So challenges with the legal department, just as with every other department, can be looked at as opportunities. There's a new challenge and opportunity to recruit new attorneys and enhance the availability of citywide legal resources. And the department will continue to provide high quality of advice and representation and undertake these projects that have been delayed because of lack of staffing. So facilities services are a total of 27 staff. Some performance measures that you can see there. They serve 86 facilities, more than 2.1 million square feet of hardscape. And our custodial services are provided to 23 facilities that encompass 338,000 square feet. So the 3 major components of our facilities division are building operations, asset management, and custodial services, all geared toward ensuring that our buildings are safe, that we're maintaining them and taking on appropriate maintenance to reduce long-term costs. And I will say that I have seen firsthand how our staff in our facilities division go above and beyond with the recent storm that we had. I know one employee came in just because he felt a personal responsibility on Sunday during the storms to start clearing the path on his own time and making sure that it would be safe for people who would arrive early Monday morning. And that's just one example of how these employees love their jobs and what they do and are willing to go above and beyond to do the best that they can to ensure our buildings are kept safe and operating correctly. So initiatives include continuing to look at more efficient ways to operate our buildings, to save money on energy, to reduce consumption, and to extend the asset of our buildings. Our buildings, many of them were built in the 1970s, more than 40 years old, and have a large list of deferred maintenance. So it's finding ways to extend the useful life and provide preventative maintenance, which is one of the challenges that we move into. Deferred maintenance needs at city structure is more than 25 million. And as we've talked to people about the Civic Center upgrades and the police facility, we can address about 17 million of that 25 million through taking on some of that work. And so looking holistically long-term, it makes fiscal sense to take care of the assets that we have versus constructing new. So, and lastly, as with all departments, there's an increase in the demand for services and reduced dollars to work within to meet those needs. So our IT departments, they have a goal of being proactive, innovative, and strategic. And this is organizational chart here, and we'll talk more about the services provided. The total FTE count in the department is 41. That includes 35 in IT and 6 in document services. Total budgets for each of those divisions are listed there. One thing we depend upon them is for the reliability of our applications and our network, and they have very high performance standards which they meet and exceed. As you can see, the stability is 99.95% for our network applications. And I know that if I ever go to purchase a vehicle, I'm going to take Krishna Namburi, our IT director, with me, because she has negotiation skills that are unparalleled to any that I've seen, and continue to negotiate with vendors and bring down our costs. But we're finding we've got to the point where it's hard to squeeze much more out of these contracts, and so we'll see what the future holds, and I know she'll continue to work hard for us. So the 6 sections of IT include network services. They're responsible for providing a stable, robust, and secure network architecture, as well as redundant data retention and other network services. Our GIS, or Geographic Information System section, provides multi-jurisdictional geospatial data and related services. Our database and application architecture is managed within the systems and programming section. They also research and implement business systems integration and use emerging technologies. I will mention that we have within the city about 175 different applications and 11 enterprise systems. So there's a lot that these folks are involved with. In the document services section, they're responsible for document creation, copying, mailing, archiving, and courier services. In the administrative section of the department is responsible for the strategic planning. In fact, they've formed a strategic committee that's comprised of department heads and the city manager's office to talk about needs organizational wide, and as we make changes to certain software or technology, recognizing that there's an impact in the entire organization, and try to plan and program to meet our needs the best as possible. So the initiatives are the electronic utility billing system, giving our customers the opportunity to pay online. Mr. Fernandez got an applause when he mentioned this last week. I didn't expect the same tonight because it's so late. Thank you. But I know that we're really focusing on trying to become more user-friendly for our residents to be able to access technology online to take care of things, to become more modern. And you know, with the limited resources we have and some of the emerging needs that come up, as the chief mentioned, an issue we had with the CAD system, sometimes these projects get placed on the back burner, but they're coming to the forefront, and we want to venture out into this century with our website and applications that we provide to our residents. So we're becoming more citizen-centric with our online presence, and we're migrating our server architecture, looking for reduced costs in that area. Also expanding some mapping capabilities and making them more available to the public, and increasing the links between our GIS systems and our city's data and other systems. And also looking to replace a very aging telecommunications infrastructure. So some of the challenges, just quickly, as I mentioned with our records retention, a lot of data to store. You also find, as you're well aware, with certain software, it's de-supported at some point and you need to upgrade. And we're dealing with a lot of those issues. And just ensuring that we are strategic in coordinating efforts across the entire city. So quickly with the Administrative Services Department, Deborah Bond showed this slide earlier. As you can see, it includes fleet and warehouse, finance, contracts, and procurement. We'll highlight some of those services. Administrative Services has total staff of 33. The budget's shown there. In our fleet and warehouse services, 18.8 FTE, and the budgets are there. Our fleet replacement is $2.7 million. At least that's the amount that we set aside or budgeted for fleet replacement this year. As far as performance notes go, we were able to maintain our bond ratings for both types in 2012 and 2013, and that's an accomplishment given what we've been through in recent years, and it's a testament to the fiscal responsibility of this budget committee and the city council, and it overall reduces costs to taxpayers as we issue bonds. So the Administrative Services Division includes our contracts and procurement. They're responsible for all of our purchasing for the entire city, and all of our contracts run through them to ensure that we're compliant with the Oregon revised statutes pertaining to public contracting. Our Finance Department, which includes our accounting, payroll, finance, cashiers, our treasury, our project accounting, and they're also responsible for our grant accounting. And then fleet and warehouse services. If you want to highlight a division that doesn't get a lot of recognition but is vital to this community, especially in public safety, that would be our fleet division. That was evident again during this most recent storm with the repairs that they were making as our snow plows had to go out in snow that's not used to the type that we see here in Oregon, that was very dry, and was clogging up some of our systems that were putting down sand on the road. And so they were very busy and did a great job of ensuring that we had vehicles out taking care of the streets, and they play a vital role in the safety of the community. So current initiatives, the chief mentioned the radio interoperability project to become what's known as P25 compliant. And we're also updating our public contracting rules. That's been a project in the works for a very long time. Our finance, as we move closer, and depending on the decision that the council makes regarding a public safety facility, we'll look to perhaps issue a bond at some point. And are also looking at implementing electric vendor payments and continuing to receive our annual awards that we get related to our comprehensive annual financial report. And lastly, I'll mention for fleet and warehouse that they're developing and implementing a long-term equipment replacement funding strategy. They have a goal of continuing 95% fleet availability and maintaining our Earthwise certification, which is environmentally sustainable practices for the fleet and warehouse division. Some of the departments are much the same as we see across the city, with the increased demand for services, new technology, and integrating that. Our contracts and procurement division, ensuring that our rules are up to date and in compliance with new legislative mandates. And there was also a change to our methods that were available for property surplus disposal, so we're now having to investigate and find new ways to get rid of our surplus property. And similar in fleet and warehouse, they serve a broad range of services, and we have an aging fleet just as we have aging infrastructure, and dealing with the volatility that can happen with our fuel prices. Last but not least, our Human Resources Department. 15 total FTE. Total budget of $1.1 million for the 8 staff and administration. And within the self-insurance fund, which includes the benefits division, a total budget of $24.8 million. They oversee programs with our own self-insurance fund and health insurance that covers 4,000 lives. And here are the faces of our HR team. Administration supports the city's recruitment and selection processes, labor relation, position classifications and compensation, training and development, and state and federal employment compliance. The benefits division provides management of the city's health insurance, employee assistance, wellness, federal and state medical leave programs, and the risk management division focuses on employee safety, workers' compensation, liability, property insurance, and unemployment benefits. So initiatives include classification studies, in particular in the Public Works Department, renovating our programs, our training programs to develop new offerings with new emphases on labor relations, performance management, and safety, and also exploring the opportunity to implement a wellness clinic on-site, which could reduce, whether on-site or close by, that would be available for public employees. This model has been very effective in other cities, in particular in Colorado, where they've been able to manage and contain healthcare costs by sending people to their own clinic and providing generic prescriptions for them there. So challenges will be complying with changing legislation and mandates, our workforce succession, looking for ways to develop new talent and ensure that some of the institutional knowledge that is contained is passed on, and finally containing costs within healthcare and those brought about because of the Affordable Care Act and the mandates associated with that. So with that, we'll close and make all of us available for questions.
First question, was that a picture of a truck parked inside of a building?
That is, yes. That's one of the claims that our risk management had to investigate. So. Yeah.
Sorry, Member Berger.
Do we have a city attorney right now, and if so, who is that?
We do. That's Dan Atchison. He's our legal counsel.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
What was the plan on that on-site kind of facility for containing health costs, the wellness center? What was the plan on that?
So we're right now providing some information to our third-party administrator and or gathering information from our former third-party administrator to one of our insurance consultants to take a look at whether it makes sense based upon the services that are needed by city employees. I've spoken with the HR director, I believe it was from Spokane, Washington, who a couple of years ago had their own clinic, and they saw a drastic reduction in their healthcare costs. Employees could go to the clinic for a very low copay. I believe theirs was $10, and generic prescriptions were no charge. And they had on-site providers there to take care of their employees and their dependents as they came in. So their experience was substantial as far as cost savings just in the first year, and that included the infrastructure costs and the original capital that it took to make that possible. So we're exploring it right now, looking to the future, especially with the luxury tax that could come into effect in 2018 without changes to our healthcare system here.
Well, the reason why I ask is because all I can see is we have doctors, nurses, x-ray machines.
And our third-party provider has experience with setting those up in other jurisdictions, as well as Wells Fargo insurance that we use as a healthcare broker for us.
All right, thank you.
All right, sorry, Member Benjamin, I was having a hard time coming up with a last name on the fly all of a sudden. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you all for staying here 3 hours.
Yes.
That's why we live.
All right. So moving on quickly, public testimony. I see one member of the public and he is standing up. Well done, Mr. Bassett, lasting it out.
Good. Chair Clausen, Mayor and Budget Committee members, I appreciate this late hour, and I just have a brief comment. I'm a little bit hoarse. I might have cheered a little bit too loud at the State of the City address today. So that's it. I'll blame that on. I wanted to talk about one of the administrative budgets that kind of sets the tone as you go from the forecast that you had at your last meeting, and then you're going to get into, you did an overview today, and then you're going to get into specifics later on. But I want to talk about multi-year comparisons and really about some of the administrative budget items for you to keep in mind as you look at this budget. You, of course, want to focus on the big ticket items, but there are a couple of administrative items that kind of jump to my attention. Specifically, there were some questions earlier about efficiencies at the library and looking to see getting the most out of that. One area that I looked at was the city council and mayor's budget. And between 2011 and 2012, that budget went from $120,000 to $171,000. So there was a $51,000 increase. One of the items in that list is the audit, your financial audit. It went from 70-some thousand down to 60,000. So there was about a $13,000 savings. So what you had in that administrative budget was an increase of over $60,000 one year to the next. And when I've asked about, what is the source of money, the city council is going to send 3 counselors to DC. And so I look at the budget items, and I look at training, and I look at travel. And I would just ask you to consider whether or not in these very tight budget times when you're cutting library, police, and parks, whether or not you want to send a third of the city council to Washington, D.C. annually with that out-of-state travel. And then I also just want to raise the concern that out of that 60,000 plus increase is also the source of funding for that State of the City video, which was very excellent. And hopefully in future years there will be a different source of funding other than general fund for that. But I want to just ask you to pay attention to administrative items. They do add up. I've highlighted over $50,000 of items that I'd ask you to look closely at. And I wish you the best of luck as you go through your budget review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bassett. Any questions? Member Berger?
Yeah, you said you outlined them. Did you submit written testimony? And what? Yeah, can we get a copy of that?
And I'd be glad to submit testimony. It's specifying the 120,000 to 171,000 and what those items are that would be worth a good, careful look.
Yeah, I would appreciate something in writing. It's late, so hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, I believe Deputy Manager Duncan was going to comment on that for just a second.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the figures that Mr. Bassett is quoting, I believe he may be comparing actual dollars expended with the amounts budgeted. And so I'd appreciate a copy of that testimony so we can go back and clarify any questions with respect to those numbers.
And yes, I do that. I would say that the budgeted amount was about $10,000 more than actual 2 years ago. And so it's a difference between 120,000 and 129,000. Your actual expenses were at 120,000. And then your budgeted amount is 171 for this current fiscal year.
Okay, any other questions? Member Bednarz?
I just wanted to make it perfectly clear for anybody who's watching this on TV and anybody out there, including yourself, Scott, that the city council is all voluntary. And so if there is an increase, there will be a logical reason for it. The councilors and the mayor do not receive 1 penny to do all the work and all the hours that we put on here. So it's not going to us. It's got to be going to something, but it's not going to us. I wanted to make that perfectly clear.
Yeah, and that budget for city council would be well more than 171,000 if it wasn't for you guys volunteering your time now, and that is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, that only paid for one.
Okay, any other public testimony? No, any other business in front of the committee? Member Bendar.
Since this is my second time going through this, and I clearly heard words last year about attendance, I want to note that we are missing 4 of our city councilors this evening. I know that 2 of them are attending another meeting put on by Willamette University about, I think it's about urban development. But the point is that they're trying to do the right thing. They've been on the council for a very long time, and they've been through this process. They know what they're looking for, and they're trying to broaden their knowledge base to help us in this council. On the flip of that whole thing, I want to acknowledge that of the 4 that are gone, I think it's 4 of the individuals that are not returning to the city council. However, we have one individual here tonight, Councillor Thomas, that she is here tonight, and I applaud her for that.
All right. Any other business? Nope. With that, we will adjourn.
Yay.